Your sound. Is it YouTube's on thing? Oh, I see. Yeah. Rachel, do you know? Here. I'm sorry. No. Turn that.
Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just went quiet all of a sudden. Anyways, I'd like to call the regular council meeting for Tuesday, October 10th to order. Firstly, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking people of the Esquimalt and Songhees nations who have provided stewardship of these lands since time immemorial. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the near-term agenda and adoption of today's agenda, please? Okay, that's Olson and Jordison. Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Motion carried. Release of in-camera resolutions. The following resolution was released from the September 25th in-camera council meeting that Jane Zhang and Jennifer Parley be appointed as the City of Colwood citizen representatives for the Souk and West Shore Literacy Project. Okay, just under next item, which is Mayor's message, just remind everyone this week it's Fire Prevention Week. This year's theme focuses on cooking fires, which are the leading cause of home fires. Just follow the City of Colwood on social media for the important safety reminders. As fall settles in, we should shift to more indoor activities. There are several art exhibits to experience in Colwood this month. The Royal Bay Commons is hosting the Some of Us in the restaurant space at Latoria Boulevard in Ryder Hedgedale Way. Drop in on Fridays between 2 and 6 p.m., Saturdays from 12 and 6 until November 4th. The Shore to Shore Pottery Tour happens Saturday, October 2023 at locations throughout the West Shore. You can find information on colwood.ca. And lastly, stop by the West Shore Parks and Rec anytime to check out the Coast Collective art space along the hallway. And that's as of today. Adoption and receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on September 25th and receipt of the emergency planning committee minutes held on May 16th. Okay, thank you very much. Day and Jordison. Any discussion, errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Public participation. We have we received 2 written submissions before cutoff time today, and 59 submissions after cutoff. And they're broken down as follows. There's 1 regarding the crosswalk at Sparrowhawk and Latoria, 7 regarding the rezoning of 2324 Souk Road, and 53 regarding the Galloping Goose pedestrian overpass. In fact, most of them were from out of the city. There's only 2 from within the city, and the rest were from Saanich and Victoria. Okay, at this point in time, we will let members of public have the opportunity to present their concerns or ask questions of council. You'll be given 2 minutes each. You'll hear a bell, and when that bell goes off, well, we're going to cut your mic. So just try to wrap it up really quickly. We won't actually cut your mic, but just wrap it up very quickly. Is there anyone that wants to actually speak on any of the agenda items at the points, or did they wish to speak right up front here in public participation? Okay, just one. Okay, I shall ask people to step up from the public. Please, if you could just identify who you are, your address, and.
I got it. Hi, I'm Deidre Marianne, and I live at 3463 Sparrowhawk Avenue. And I have written to council about the sidewalk, and I just wanted to come to the council this evening to create a sense of urgency and support for the council to have this sidewalk happen quickly. I understand that there is work underway, and I appreciate staff writing back to me and other people who've written in to let me know that there is work underway. But like most work, it takes some time to review and examine and make a plan. And that said, I believe the safety of young families, children, and people my age crossing the street deserves an urgent action. And I'll just leave a couple of thoughts for you in regard to the urgency. And while it doesn't deal with Colwood, it does deal with road safety. I've also let staff know about these situations. One being a young man named Cadence Bork in Saanich, who died crossing the road at a crosswalk. Citizens had identified that there was a safety matter and there was work underway, but unfortunately the light was put in 3 months after he died. There was also a bicyclist killed there, and I really don't want Colwood to have that same experience, because you have heard concerns from me and others. So I think we all agree there is a safety matter there. The other situation, it's really a matter of encouragement for you to continue some dialogue with the private sector, just to advise that there's been other successful locations where there has been funding provided by private sector to offset the cost for a light. I can reflect Highway 17 at Uptown Mall, where a insurance provider paid for the light at that location because they didn't want to kill their customers. So I just want to have your support in pushing for even a temporary light so we can increase safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next.
Craig Dysart, 3153 Lindlark Place, concerning the development at the corner of Lindlark and Souk Road. I understand it's a growth corridor and something is going to go there, but I don't agree with the size and the scope of this building. Mainly, it's the protection of the trees on the borders, bordering properties, and the lack of parking stalls. I don't think anybody sitting in front of me would appreciate their on-street parking disappearing if there was a development. It goes on in every municipality where the developers are allowed to put these buildings up with not adequate parking. We all know they have guests come over, they have friends come over, people staying over. It's a problem everywhere with development. My main sticking point on this property is the entrance coming onto Lindlark. It's already a busy road trying to get onto Souk Road and off. You're going to add 70 units worth of vehicles, and it's going to make it that much harder. I think probably they're probably going to say it's a safety issue. Well, it's a safety issue for everybody on Lindlark. These people have lived there a long time, and I feel that if they get their way to come off onto Lindlark, you're selling out the residents of Lindlark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Aaron Weisgerber, 3134 Lindlark. I'd like to speak to the development at the corner of Souk and Lindlark as well. I believe in the last meeting it was mentioned that the road Lindlark itself might be widened at the mouth to help alleviate traffic, but I do feel the same with my neighbors that the driveway being onto Lindlark is a mistake from a planning perspective, because it's going to more than double the traffic volume that Lindlark was designed for to dump onto Souk Road. Eventually, I understand that Souk Road will be widened with a dual left turn lane, which will make it easier, but that's 3, 4, 5 years out. So we're going to be living with this nightmare for many years before we can conveniently turn on and off of our road again. So if there's any way, the developer mentioned previously that the neighboring house further down Souk Road that would make the parcel a little more appropriately sized along Souk didn't want to sell to them. I'd argue that there's a price. You just got to find it, and that would hopefully give enough frontage onto Souk Road that that driveway could go far enough away from Lindlark to be safe and give both the development and Lindlark residents reasonable access. So I'd hope council would consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm talking on behalf of the neighboring property right now. It's my mother's on Souk Road. So it's a busy enough road as it is. I understand they're concerned that Souk Road as well is a problem. When it comes down to, I just kind of want to bring up the history. People bought homes in this area. It's a single dwelling area, and bought homes hoping to retire there. Well, my mom was able to pay that house off. My dad passed away there 20 years ago. So obviously there's some sentimental value. She is willing to look at options, they said, like for selling. The issue was at the time is as soon as that place, they were looking at Martin, the neighbor, what happens is the vultures started circling in. The real estate agents are coming from everywhere, lowballing or at market value. We know that place is not going to go ever for a single dwelling again, according to the TGA 1. So then we also had an investor come in problem with the investor who brought up a price was the fact that he gave a 3-day notice. So my mom was she was pressured and she didn't really have the time to deal with it. So just to let you know, it is still kind of open. And that notice really has to go to that information to everybody on Souk Road. Like, according to the plans is they're coming for you. I mean, it's got to be widened. I went and checked from the middle to where the sidewalk's going to end up. It's going to be past my mother's tree. You'll barely be able to fit a car into where her house begins. So we know there's changes and changes might have to happen, but I just think more consultation has to be done. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Chad Loster. I'm on 3156 Linlark Place. I bought there back in 2006, so I've been there for 17 years. And I've had 3 boys there. And I in total have 8 children right across the street from this condo. So I'm heavily invested in safety in this unit here. So I'm initially thinking about transition zones and how Colwood's talking about how we transition from single family dwellings to maybe townhouses to bigger condos. And this is going straight to a 6-story condo right away, straight to a single family dwelling. All the trees on this property are going to get torn down, every single one. The city of Colwood is heavily committed to having a property that is awarded for its beauty, like Esquimalt Lagoon, Royal Roads, and we're just tearing down every single tree that exists there. All the neighbors are upset. It's going to wreck the roots of some of the neighboring properties. In terms of safety, like the sidewalk, my kids ride their bikes on this road every single day, all day long. And there will be 60 or 70 more cars on my street. And it's totally unacceptable. Transition zone, trees, safety. It's not okay. Something has to happen. The design needs to change. It needs to be smaller. 3-story townhouses is actually realistic. And moving out of Allendale, moving the street off of Linlark onto Souk Road. It needs to be done.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name's Evelyn Rody. I live at 3155 Linlark. Lived there for 50-odd years. A lot of people on that street were there when I came and are still there. I'm here for the trees. There's over 39 trees coming down, plus 9 neighboring trees. Within that block, you've already taken down over 100 trees in the last 6 months. We have crows nesting in those trees. Who cares? We have owls nesting in those trees. We have, I don't think the eagles are actually there, but they're close. We see them every day. The big thing is that I believe most of you were elected on the platform that you were saving the trees. Well, this isn't saving the trees. There's a lot of trees. And last meeting I was at was here for climate control. Well, those trees are climate control. They're cool. They provide natural shade. They block the wind. They stop the flooding. They absorb the water, and they clean our air. And the arborist says you must replace them with 75 trees. Well, these are 150-foot trees, 12-inch tree replacements. Don't cut it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Your worship, councillors, my name is Miroslav Paprotny. I am licensed architect and urban planner. I've been living on Linlark Place for over 15 years, and I've been closely monitoring and looking at this application. And this application, in terms of the size, is completely wrong. And purely because a couple of elements which I identified in my presentation, which was sent earlier today to the city of Colwood, and I hope that will be shared with you so you can take a look. There is approximately 10-12 pages, and I will only summarize the high level. I will only summarize at high level what I included. Within the 250 to 300 meters, according to what group report, which is a traffic consultant, there is in the pipeline approximately 350 residential units. Adding to it the Allendale development, there will be approximately 450 to 50 units coming in around this intersection in next 2-3 years. So I think this should be taken under consideration. This should be taken under consideration when looking at the size of this development. Another thing what was raised here before was the traffic. Traffic is definitely an issue. Currently there is 60 cars as per current zoning by law on the street. The increase will be by 96 cars or 92 cars, which is almost 150% increase on the street. And this increase happens at the front of the street. It is completely wrong. It's basically choke the street. I haven't seen anything in the application and the supporting materials, how the fire department will get to this back of the street and how the ambulance will service elderly people in need if this front of the street will be blocked. Because as per the application, all the loading and garbage collection will happen on Linlark Place, not on the site, which is wrong. Another thing, what is wrong, what was raised here before, is cutting the trees. Okay, I understand the developer wants to maximize the clear cutting on the site, but why, for God's sake, is asking to cut 11 trees? The application, the arborist report says, in order to accommodate this building requires cutting 11 trees on the private adjacent properties. Who's going to execute that? You force the neighbors to cut down the tree in order to accommodate this building. Another thing is, we're talking about need for housing. Yes, I agree with it. A couple of years ago, we are at the same position talking about the adjacent neighborhood, which is currently townhouses. Already in this complex, there is Airbnb. That's what we're looking for. We should take that under consideration as well, in my opinion. Other things is, there is nothing about sustainability, no energy performance for the building, accessibility. 25% of the Canadian population is basically has got issues with mobility or they are disabled to a certain degree. Absolutely 0 units for disabled people. 3-bedroom units are on top floors. Their price, market price, will be what currently likely are the duplexes on Linlark Place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Joe Roenick. I'm at 3130 Linlark. You have to excuse me, my hearing is very poor. I didn't know what was going on. My concern is with the increase in traffic from Linlark onto Souk Road, left turn or right turn. We had a project on, I believe it 2330 Souk Road, started a couple of years ago, and they had a traffic assessment done. And they were saying that the traffic coming off Linlark and off Jadell onto Souk Road was pretty much at an unacceptable level back then. Now, with this new development, they're going to have vehicles coming from Linlark onto the highway, another 80 vehicles on top of that. So apparently the level of the service right now is at a level D, which is on the threshold of acceptable and unacceptable. I think this other 80 cars are going to push it into far into an unacceptable level. It's not much fun getting on and off Linlark at certain times. That is my concern. And I ask again, I understand there's a feasibility of the sewer extension has been done and that has been confirmed. I don't know if you could answer that, yes or no, or should I ask someone else?
Oh, I think the CEO can answer that question right now. Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. I see we've got the engineering team in the back of the room. They may be best placed.
Okay,
We'll get you an answer right now. Our director of engineering is coming up here.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't quite clear what the question was.
It's about the sewage line. If you just said that you heard about the sewer lines that are going into Linlark,
Right.
could you just confirm whether that's feasible now? I know that was a point of discussion and a negotiation.
It is feasible to a certain extent, and we're just working on that final design to see how much of that can be gravity fed and how much of that will have to be with the lift station. But there is a possibility for a significant portion of the area to be sewered, yes.
Thanks so much, Joe. Does that answer your question, sir? Up to the, sorry, should come to the mic.
That's okay, thank you. I believe everybody on Linlark, I know myself, received a letter from the developer saying it was a completed deal, that if this development was allowed to go ahead, every single house on Linlark would have sewer connected to the property line. So they're false advertising, in my opinion. If
Thank
you
you very
haven't
much.
got the city, if the city hasn't confirmed it, then
Thank you. If you could just give it to the corporate officer. Thank you very much. Sir?
Hey, my name is Harjeet. I'm one of the developers on this project. Just in response to the question, I believe the letters were essentially outlining for the engineering portion that it is feasible. The only question is to determine how many homes would be on gravity, and some of the homes will need to get pumps put in to get it to the thing. But in terms of the feasibility, our engineer did confirm that it is feasible all along Linlark.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
I'm Bill Sears and I live at 3136 Linlark. I've been living there for 37 years. When I moved in there, the traffic was about 38 cars. We now have about 88. And it's just, when you try to get off Linlark onto the highway, man, close your eyes and go. That's the way it is. And I think this new subdivision or new building is going to be too big. You know, and I agree, you have to have parking, but I think also safety, and the kids are enjoying the street, and I hate to see that taken away. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Dave Reardon. I live on Linlark 3124. I lived there for 35 years. The big thing I have against this project is completely against the official community plan. It's going to take away from the quality of life of people who lived on that street for all this time, good people. And it's going to be a brutal intrusion to have this thing stuffed onto this property. It's only going to benefit the builder. As far as the sewage line goes, it doesn't matter to us. Linlark has very good septic systems. Everybody here has had their systems either upgraded or rebuilt, and nobody here is willing to pay $25,000 to connect to a sewer to help the developer. It's just out of the question. You guys got to come to your senses on this. You got to protect this neighborhood. It's been here forever. We voted for you to support the people of Colwood and the communities of Colwood. So do so.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. No other speakers? Oh, one last one.
Hi, my name is Andrew Blakely. I'm at 3154 Linlark Place. As I want to speak on behalf of all my neighbors, you know, I have two little girls, and you know, the safety of the road is already not good as it is. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have adequate street lighting on that street. We only have 3 street lights for that whole block that are on pole. I would absolutely be happy to pay more taxes if that meant that we got more safety on our block. But if you're going to add 67 units to a 6-story building, and you're going to say that there's only one, the study that came out said it was only 1 point, I don't know what the study was, per car per unit. That's not acceptable. There needs to be way more parking available. Not to mention the ecological stuff with all the birds and everything else that are in the trees. That doesn't work. So not to mention all the safety issues. There's tons of safety issues. And I'm a Class 1 truck driver and I see it every day. Like you coming out onto that road, that is just dangerous. And you just got to hope and pray that you're going to make it on that street. So, and not to mention, the other development hasn't even been built yet. So if we're not even building those two buildings that are a 6-story building and a 4-story building in the other development at 2330 Linlark, or Soup Road, we haven't even filled that or even built those yet. So we're already going to develop another 6-story building. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think you guys as our elected officials should really be looking out on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, but I really would like to reiterate that the people who are representing Linlark Place are doing a good job, and I've lived there for a long time, and I live on 3152 Linlark, and my sons have grown up in that area, and we have little children next door, and that man's on the other side. And we have a lady across the road who babysits her granddaughter. We have and then there's 3 or 4 kids up the road as well, 2 houses down. So there are lots of little children. There are people who went and bought into our neighborhood because it was a neighborhood for children and adults. It wasn't built to hold a lot of cars. It wasn't built for adults only. It was built to have a community. And it's almost like your yes is going to rip that community apart and put a huge amount of people in where there hasn't been built for that many people. I don't agree with any of what you're doing, because I have the other buildings farther down Soup Road are right on our backyard. So when we sit on our deck, we see all these new buildings. So I'm just saying that things maybe are moving a bit too quickly and nobody's ready for it. That may sound silly, but I didn't rehearse it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's it for the one more. Yeah, sure. Well,
I'm Brian Robson, 3131 Linlark. My property back in my backyard will kitty corner the new development. I'm one of many here tonight, and I hope that you have given us all your due attention, and I thank you for that. One thing I would like to just express is that we enjoy our own quality of life. It's be nice if nothing ever happened to change that, but we recognize that progress is inevitable. You have a mandate. You would like to have more affordable housing for more people. This we understand. And you are doing something about it. There are suitable places that you are developing in such a manner as to allow affordable housing within the Colwood city limits. And for this, you should be commended. I do think, though, that this particular development requires a little bit more of a critical eye. It is an extremely ambitious project for a cul-de-sac that isn't necessarily the best place for it. Certainly, we would like to have more people in there. A more conservative approach to the property would probably help go a long way to make everybody happy. We're going to lose all the trees. I'm not going to have a buffer zone for my backyard anymore between me and a 6-story building. The 6-story building is going to be so high that it's going to be able to see my front yard, and I have a 2-level home. So I'm going to be, looked upon like the eagles are going to be looking down on top of the ground. So if you would, please consider where this project is going, the amount of traffic that it's going to generate, and consider the location. We're willing to compromise. It doesn't seem like this particular developer is willing to do so. At least the one that's next door to him on the other side of Linlark is a 4-level development. My neighbors on that side actually don't mind the optics as much. So please consider all of these factors. We appreciate your service with us, and we hope you'll make the right decision. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to move on. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation this evening. I'm going to move on to delegations, CRD Arts Commission. I'd like to offer a warm welcome to the CRD Arts Commission Chair, Marianne Alto, who's also the Mayor of Victoria, and the CRD Manager of CRD Arts and Culture, Chris Gilpin, who are going to give us a presentation. Over to you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. And I am here this evening as the chair of the CRD Arts Commission. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your time. I also appreciate your earlier land acknowledgement. It's always so important to all of us to be able to be aware of the privilege that we have being on these lands and with the waters that surround them. So thank you for that. I'm actually going to hand the chair over immediately to Chris Gilpin. He's going to do a bit of a presentation, and we're here really to just explain a little bit about the Arts Commission, what it does, and to leave you with an invitation. So Chris, over to you.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity, Colwood Council, to talk a little bit about the CRD Arts and Culture Support Service. My name is Chris Gilpin. I'm the Manager of Arts and Culture at the CRD. I attended some of our parts. Thank you for mentioning it, Mayor Kobayashi, at the Commons in Royal Bay last week. It's an incredible exhibition. I really recommend that you all check it out. What you see up here is a map of the services participants. It's a sub-regional service. That means some jurisdictions have opted into it and some do not participate. So you can see there's 9 jurisdictions, and on the West Shore, Sooke and Metchosin are already part of this service. The structure of the service has 3 components. So there's an Arts Commission, that is 9 elected officials, 1 from each jurisdiction. There's an Arts Advisory Council, that's 12 appointed community members who adjudicate the grants and provide policy advice. And I will mention that actually 2 of those volunteers currently are from the West Shore. And then there's staff. There's 3 of us who are very efficient from an administrative perspective. We run 5 granting programs. There's Idea Grants, which funds non-arts organizations to do arts events. There's incubator grants to help organizations get up and going, so young arts organizations. Project grants fund one-time or series operating grants that provide stable funding for long-term planning. And then equity grants support programs by and for communities facing significant collective barriers to accessing funding. So last year, we distributed $2.6 million to 95 nonprofit organizations. Those organizations presented over 11,000 events and employed over 4,000 arts workers. Just to mention that the arts sector in the region is incredibly fastly growing, especially compared to the rest of Canada. So over 15 years, arts and culture workers have grown 50% in the capital region, and that's compared to 8% nationally. So it's a really big part of the capital region. Arts funding, it amplifies economic impact. And we've seen many studies showing this, about $1.6 in economic impact for every dollar that's invested. And then I'm just going to read out 2 quotes here. This is from the West Shore Community Arts Center preliminary feasibility study, which the city of Colwood commissioned last year and was published recently. So the policy problem here, as Colwood is not part of the CRD Arts Service, it's not eligible for any share of the $2.5, now $2.6 million in annual funding. As well, groups from participating municipalities will not receive support for them to perform in Colwood. I'll talk about that in a second. Moreover, by not participating in the CRD's programs, some artists and presentations might be deterred from performing at venues in Colwood. So policy solution, recommendation number 6 in the report, it is recommended that the city of Colwood look at joining the CRD's Arts and Culture Support Program. What would be the benefits if Colwood joined? Well, nonprofit organizations in Colwood would have access to the 5 granting programs with a total granting budget of $2.6 million. Right now, unfortunately, they cannot apply. And getting back to that point that was made in the report, currently arts organizations in other jurisdictions who do participate in the service cannot receive CRD grant funding to bring arts events to Colwood and Colwood venues. So I just want to make this clear because it's a little bit of a more complex point. Right now, every year, I get project grants from organizations in participating jurisdictions, like, for example, Sooke. The Sooke Philharmonic is one. And they want to do events that go through a bunch of different regions, parts of the region. So they might have an event in Souk, one in Colwood, and one in Saanich. And right now I can say that the CRD funding can fund the one in Souk and Saanich, but it can't fund the one in Colwood because it's not participating currently. And so I've actually had to disallow grants that wanted to bring arts events to Colwood because of that. The two organizations that I've mentioned specifically that this has affected them have been the Souk Philharmonic and the Victoria Symphony, who both want to bring events to Dogwood Auditorium. More benefits, of course, Colwood residents already benefit from arts activities, and this amplifies arts across the region. It would enhance Colwood's reputation as a community leading the way in supporting arts and culture. And by joining the service, you would also get a seat on the Arts Commission, which means that Colwood would have a chance to shape the entire region's arts policy. So this is all about activating arts in Colwood. It's about supporting the expansion of existing arts initiatives and unlocking community potential. You can see there is the Souk Philharmonic in the Dogwood Auditorium, the Bloom Art Show by Arts and Culture Colwood. Of course, there's a cost to joining the service as well. And so these are estimates for 2025. It's already would be too late to join for 2024. That budget's already pretty much out the door. But if Colwood were to join for 2025, there's 2 tiers in this service. And if it were to join at the tier 1 level, it would be approximately $191,000 or $24 per average household. And then if it were to join at the tier 2 level, it would be $60,000 or about $7.5 per average household. Of course, that's part of the CRD requisition in property taxes. It is not part of the expenditures of the City of Colwood budget. It's part of the expenditures of the CRD budget. And the differences between the 2 tiers, of course, everyone wants to know. If Colwood were to join at either tier, organizations in Colwood would have access to the granting programs at the same level. You could access all the same granting programs. Really, the difference between the tiers is the level of influence on the CRD Arts Commission and the reputation, as well as being able to amplify the arts regionally. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you for your time. We're very much aware that currently you're focused very much on local organizations and arts groups, and we totally applaud that. What we're doing here tonight is just leaving with you this information and an invitation to consider this for 2025. You'll obviously have a chance to think about this when you go through your 24 and 25 budgets. And I guess for us, it's really just a matter of trying to reach out to all of the different jurisdictions within the region to try and bring you into the tent in a way to allow there to be a bit of a broader look at all of the different arts opportunities there are throughout the region. And I would add just one thing, later this year and into 2024, the CRD will be reactivating the committee that it had for some time looking at arts infrastructure throughout the region. And so the commission will be part of that conversation as well. So again, as Chris mentioned, were you to be part of the commission, you would be having a very instrumental role in that conversation as well. So not just in arts and culture and production, but in where all of those wonderful things can take place. So just going to leave that with you. We're happy to take any questions if you like, or just to leave that information with you. And we look forward to any future discussion that you might wish to have. Invitations with you, and doors always open. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Marianne. Any questions from council? Councillor D.
Thank you. I just wondered, when you do your grants, what percentage of your grants are sustainable long-term funding and which are one-off grants?
Thanks for the question. So in terms of the breakdown of the grant funding budget, about 85% of the granting budget does go to operating grants. So it's really about supporting a large number of organizations sustainably stable funding to provide long-term planning, and about 15% of the grants are for the project-based granting programs, the other 4.
So, and there's for the sustainable long-term funding, is that not kind of mostly going to the theaters in Victoria, like the Royal and the McPherson?
That's an excellent question. So this does not fund the Royal Theatre and does not fund the McPherson Playhouse. Those are 2 separate CRD services, completely separate from this service that we're talking about. So there's 1.3 million that goes through a completely separate service that is has different participants. This one is really focused on arts programming. So all of the organizations, and there are currently there are 22 of them on operating grants, and they're spread across the region. They're really focused on providing arts programming.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Chair Alto and Mr. Gilpin for taking the time to come and present to us this evening. I think Councillor Day hit on something that interested me, and that I noticed of the 2.5 plus that was spent or expenditures last year, 1.716 million was in operating grants for facilities that were in the core of Victoria, and that's understandable because that has been kind of the epicenter for the region for a long time. But increasingly, I think folks in the West Shore are looking to maybe travel a little less, at least until we see an improvement in the transit structure around here. But my question, I suppose, for you is that the feeling I have is that in the West Shore, we might be putting the cart before the horse in that we don't have a facility. And I know, Chair Alto, you mentioned that at the very end, and I was looking for that because I think until we have something for our region, do we have assurances that, if we contribute either at that 30% level or at the full ride, we'll see the benefit or the same or greater benefit than funding our own arts and culture groups? Without the infrastructure here, are we essentially supporting arts facilities in core Victoria?
Thank you for both of those questions. And I think it was great for Chris to point out that the Royal and McPherson are a completely different funding source. But I think that your question really speaks to actually the utility of considering joining the Arts Commission and the Arts Program, because when your creators from the city of Colwood come forward and want that type of operational and programming money, this is one of the pools from which they can actually pull to do their work here in Colwood. And so the conversation that you identify about facilities is coming. Certainly there were some preliminary conversations a year or two ago, just post-COVID, about some of that analysis. That was put on hold for a moment. It's going to be coming back again in 2024. But meanwhile, this type of a fund is intended to actually provide both operational money, pilot money, project money, and seed money for the creators who create your actual arts and culture performances, for the opportunities that are here, and they're here in the city of Colwood. As Chris pointed out, some of the challenges that we have with you not being a member is the limitations that come to the program not actually being allowed to give money to your own creators for the work that's being done here, or for other creators who want to do work here in the community. So your question actually, I think, points to one of the most important reasons for you to consider actually joining the program.
Appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Just one question for you, Chris, or two actually. Is so of the, say we're tier one, $191,000. How much of that would really in reality come back to the community? Is it all of it, or is it some of it, or is it amortized over 5 years and will eventually get your money back? So how does that work?
Sure, yeah, happy to answer that. We're taking a regional approach to supporting the arts. So with all of the contributions, we're not trying to create a one-to-one feedback loop with every single participant to the service. It is a regional approach, and we are looking to support the entire region's arts service. What we've seen though, Souk participates and receives quite a number of grants. Machosin had more money going back into Machosin than coming out of Machosin in the last year. So there is no guarantees around exactly one-to-one reciprocal relationship in the way the money comes in and goes out. But what we've seen is that regional approach has benefited communities on the West Shore. And the other thing I should mention is that in our strategic plan, there is a specific priority to amplify arts in rural areas. And that would also potentially help parts of Colwood as well, and parts of the West Shore.
Fair enough. So my second question is, when you're dispersing the funds, is that the committee, you're saying that we have a seat on? Is that who disperses the funds?
Yes, so you would have the Arts Commission has the final approval over all expenditures of the Arts and Culture Support Service, and you would gain a seat on that Arts Commission, which has final approval over all expenditures. The Arts Advisory Council adjudicates the grants, and that's the community volunteers. So they're the ones who are scoring the grants and adjudicating the grants. So it is a two-stage process in that sense, is that basically the Arts Advisory Council makes recommendations to the Arts Commission about what should be funded, and the Arts Commission has the final say.
So is that a weighted vote?
It's a non-weighted vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're equal. One vote?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. That was
Thank you
great.
very much for your time. We appreciate it and happy to answer any.
Hey, I get to invite the Rotary Club of the West Shore. We haven't seen you guys in a long time. I'd like to welcome Linda Mackie, and Mike Reilly, who will be giving a presentation on a proposal for an outdoor pool facility here in Colwood.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship. And I think everyone knows me, Mike Reilly, 3362 Swindale Crescent. Thank you for the birthday wishes today to a handful of you. I'm here today as the president of the West Shore Rotary. I'm very excited about what my friend and fellow Rotarian Linda Mackie will be talking about today. When I look at the vision board behind you, some of the things that jump out are a need for gathering spaces and better parks. And what we're going to be presenting to you today and asking for your support to move to the next step would be just that. So, Linda, please.
Happy birthday. Okay, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much to the council for having us present our proposal here tonight. I've been waiting for this for a while. I've been super excited since talking with Doug and Mike in the spring. So I'm just going to walk you through the proposal shown above, but I would like to share a personal story, and forgive me if I'm reading from my speech. I haven't got it memorized. The personal story is basically what sparked everything and why we're here tonight. And I'm particularly excited about this proposal because when we moved to Colwood back in 2016, my family and I, we specifically chose Colwood. And the reason we chose Colwood is because we just love the raw beauty of the West Shore, Colwood in particular. For me personally, it reminds me of where I grew up on the North Shore in West Vancouver. You know, we've got the hills behind, we've got the ocean in front of us. I mean, it's just beautiful. And we love the plans for Royal Bay where we live, my family and I, and how it's growing with all the different amenities and everything that's going on there. And because we wanted to maximize our time in nature and live in a place where we can get involved in the community and where our son, who was 8 at the time, could make lots of friends and live in a safe and fun environment that was family oriented and that provided him with a lot of different activities to do without resorting to go to the mall and potentially getting into trouble. So this brings me to what really struck me about where we live here in Colwood and the West Shore and Victoria in general, actually. It really begged the question when we moved here, where are all the outdoor pools? I was like, where are they? I really couldn't find any. And I had assumed, you know, coming from Vancouver, that Victoria was probably similar in that, you know, we get lots of more sunshine here. There's so much more open space. There's seemingly lots of different areas where outdoor pools could be, and that there were going to be a whole bunch, but there weren't. I couldn't find any really, except for one at Bear Mountain, which seemed quite exclusive and, you know, quite expensive. So not really accessible to everybody. So anyway, this was all very surprising and baffling to me. So flash forward to the spring, I had a nice conversation with Mike here and sort of posed the question to him. And, you know, how come there aren't really any outdoor pools here? And he couldn't really give me an answer. So we thought about it and I said, well, you know, maybe it's because we have the oceans and lots of lakes to swim in, but I'm like, not everybody likes to swim in lakes or the ocean. So we got to talking. We thought maybe this could be a project that we could really get behind with the help of the Rotary Club and the city of Colwood and make it a reality for the community that we love so much. So that's why we're here tonight. And I'm super passionate to share this proposal with you. So as you may know, there are about 15 outdoor pool facilities in the Greater Vancouver area, and I grew up with that. Having access to several of them throughout my youth and childhood was absolutely priceless. When I look back on it, I had so many amazing memories of going to these different pools, like the historic Kitsilano pool that's still in operation today. For me, it was the Ambleside outdoor pool in West Vancouver. It was right in our own backyard with a breathtaking view of the ocean and the city, nature all around. and literally anyone in the community could come and enjoy it. So needless to say, outdoor pools played and still play a huge part in public life for Vancouverites through the decades, probably since the 50s or maybe even earlier, and many that are still in existence today. So I spent a lot of time in my youth at these pools, taking swimming lessons and entire summers there with friends and family. And it served as a super safe and fun and of course, healthy hub for everyone in the community. And as a parent, we spent much of our son's first years taking him to these various outdoor pools. And I really missed that since moving here. From our perspective, the added value of having such a facility cannot be understated for people at any stage in life. To provide an idea of why we think it would be right for Colwood, we could go to page 3 of the proposal. Oh, am I doing it? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, well, page 2 is, how do I do this? Oh, there, okay. So that's my personal story. How would an outdoor pool benefit Colwood? So I've written a bit about it up there. Where am I now? Okay, so it can't be denied that an outdoor pool facility in Greater Vancouver and the North Shore really helps skyrocket the desirability of living there and property values. Having such easy and affordable access for the entire community is not only priceless, but ultimately and consistently provides a plethora of benefits for everyone. And in our opinion, Colwood is such an ideal place for such a facility to be built. As an up-and-coming community with new developments and rapid population growth, more and more families are making their lives out here and more on their way. Such a facility would definitely make Colwood an even more appealing place to live and the world-class community it's aiming to be. In addition to creating jobs for teens and adults alike, it would provide opportunities for growth and serve as a regional attraction, generating various revenue streams through a variety of viable services. It would not only be a pool, but a community and a recreational hub promoting healthy lifestyles and community bonding. And it wouldn't be limited to the pool itself. Quite importantly, it could host a variety of community services, clubs, organizations, courses, classes, perhaps a circuit training area, areas for music and entertainment, and the arts. A concession stand, cafe, just to name a few. And these could all be constructed along with the pool itself. In terms of location, from what I understand, there are several possibilities. Let's see where we are now. Anyway, those are some more benefits. In terms of location, there could be various possibilities in Colwood. For instance, the area beside Latoya Creek Park. Its proximity to the growing areas of Royal Bay and the beachlands and other developments across the West Shore and outerlying areas of Victoria would add significant value to the desirability and most definitely property and land values. We understand this kind of project would be a big undertaking and commitment. So on page 4, you will see that the Rotary Club is already committed to supporting this project unanimously, by the way, including working directly with and assisting the city, as well as promoting the project to all West Shore municipalities to engage and help and gain their support, as well as encourage involvement from other service groups and organizations in researching and accessing other possible funding options. Now, we know the question of cost and feasibility are, of course, at the top of the list for the city to consider, or close to it, I would say, if not the top. On pages 5 and 6, you'll find our preliminary estimation of the cost of such a project based on our research sits at about 12 billion. I'm just kidding, 12 million. Only 12 million. It is a significant investment, yes, but one that accrues many, many benefits over time and promises decades of return on investment as proven by Vancouver and no doubt other communities worldwide. On page 7, let's go to, all right. Page 7, you'll find reference to Moose Jaw Saskatchewan's recent outdoor pool project, wherein they rebuilt an aging, outdated outdoor pool facility. This project was made possible through federal funding and local collaboration. On page 8, we prepared some preliminary research into various funding and partnership options for this project in Colwood. So let's skip to page 12. Okay. For a few final points to touch on, the pages in between provide further research and reference to other successful outdoor aquatic facilities for your review. Here we wanted to reinforce how we think this would be a significant opportunity for Colwood to become the world-class community it wants to be, to provide accessible and inclusive recreational services for everyone in the community at a reasonable cost, but still be profitable, and to be a place for members of the community to cultivate athletic talent and growth in the arts. If done right, an outdoor pool facility would bring so much added value to the community in terms of opportunity, inclusion, and growth, and be a huge boost for the future viability for Colwood, the West Shore, and perhaps even the city of Victoria as a whole. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation and invite you to strongly consider this proposal and look to investing in a feasibility study as the next step to making this project a reality for our much loved community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Linda. Any questions? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you, Linda, and thank you, Mike. Happy birthday. Certainly happy to hear from our friends at the Rotary Club. I have a soft spot for Rotary as a District 5020 group study exchange alumni. So I owe Rotary some thanks for a very great experience early in my my day job career. On the swimming pool proposal, so tried to research as best as one can to get an understanding. For me, I think the personal anecdotes I think are relative. I mean, I grew up in a community where a outdoor pool was the gathering place. Did my swim lessons there, the Red Cross lessons, and you know, and there's a social element, but there is a safety element. There's a community element. So it doesn't take a lot or a strong sales pitch to convince me that an outdoor pool is a great thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I love an outdoor pool. When I look at the models that are out there now, I looked at the Phyllis Dewar pool replacement in Moose Jaw. I looked at Lake Country in the Okanagan. City of Edmonton operates a number of pools. City of Cambridge, Ontario is very comparable to what we'd be talking about in Colwood and comparable to the Moose Jaw proposal. And what it distilled down for me is that, you know, capital costs aside to build, which I'll touch on in a moment, you're looking at about an average of roughly around 150K a year in operating expenses. And that doesn't really roll into the 12 million that was listed. I mean, in year one, sure. But so that's what we'd be looking at on an annual basis. So slightly under a 1% tax rate if we want to, you know, sort of bring it to a further kind of financial perspective. What I think is interesting for me is how, and maybe with your assistance, staff assistance, if we were to move forward with a feasibility study, would to understand the cost recovery and what that looks like, because that's really the model that matters to me. Putting aside, okay, if the money's there to build it, build it. But the cost recovery ranged anywhere in the examples I could find from 23% up to 59%. And so for those who don't get what I'm talking about, it's, you know, flip that around and that's how much you have to subsidize that facility, right? So the cost recovery model, I think, would be critical for me to understand, okay, good idea or not, can we afford it in the city of Colwood or in the West Shore? Is it a bigger partnership with West Shore Parks and Rec? So that's something that I'd love to find out. In terms of the capital cost, seems pretty reasonable. The most recent example I could find is a proposal for Mount Pleasant Park in Vancouver with, you know, all the add-ins and everything netted around $14 million. Or at Hillside Aquatic Center, they netted out around 8.5 million, but that's because they've got an existing indoor facility that was built during the Olympics there. So I think the capital model is there, and you know, if there's a means to generate that money with the support of the Rotary Club, that's awesome. But for me, I think the next step is, you know, what does that operating model look like? That to me is what the foundation of the decision would be based on, you know, and the rest is there. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Did you want to speak to that? at all, or-
Was there a question there or?
Not really a question per se, sorry. Not really a question per se, Mike, but I mean, I think if you can speak to, you know, your thoughts or what your group has sort of spitballed or put down on paper in regards to the longer term view in terms of operating expenses, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to take that. So this is an enormous undertaking, as you can imagine, and it's been shocking. Some of the challenges in the research is that there just hasn't been this level of public development in public spaces in 30 years. So even the things which, through your excellent research, are difficult to compare because many of them have been repairs or refits to existing facilities. I'm glad that the numbers come in close to what we were thinking of for the capital, but in terms of ongoing, West Shore Rotary is not going to do this all on their own. We're expecting participation from all of the other Rotary clubs on the south part of the island, as well as sharing it with other service clubs like the Lions. And then there's, as Linda pointed out, some very generous grant proposals. I particularly like an endowment process where not only while we're looking for the development, the capital for the build, is looking for donors that would like to participate in an endowment from which we could generate annual ongoing maintenance costs from, rather than having to constantly bring it up from new budget. The money's out there. Once the dialogue starts, there's no reason to think that there wouldn't be participation to develop an endowment fund that goes alongside with the construction of the pool.
Councillor Olson.
Thank you. Great presentation. And I think you actually just answered some of the questions that I was looking to ask. And Ian touched on a lot of things that I was hoping to say, but I didn't get a chance to say happy birthday. So I thought I should keep my mic on. And just that I really appreciate, I really appreciate you bringing something like this to the table because, you know, I, for one, am passionate about swimming in my family. And I think that outdoor pool does bring that sense of community and a lot of tourism to Colwood as well. So I'm really excited to see where we can go further with this. And I did have a question about the feasibility study. Was that something that that the Rotary Club would be looking to fund, or would you be looking to the city of Colwood or municipalities to collectively?
Yeah, at this point, we want to know whether this is a dialogue that's even worth having. You know, if Colwood said we don't want to have a pool in our jurisdiction, then that kind of ends it. So the purpose of tonight is to see, are you interested in having this discussion? And then where do we put it? What does it look like? And we'll certainly, the challenge would be, where does the Rotary participate at that point beyond the actual nuts and bolts of Colwood's expenditures at this point? But my fear, and this is born of my own observation of provincial attitudes, is that we have a great idea and it gets scaled down to something that doesn't satisfy anybody by going too small. So I think, you know, our last big project was the Sarah Beckett Memorial just before COVID, and that was $250,000, which seemed like a big undertaking. So I know for the Little West Shore Rotary to roll up its sleeves and propose something this bold is going to take a lot more than certainly it'll outlast my presidency, and it may outlast some of your council positions as well. So
Thank you. And to just a quick second point, I think that the key here with even exploring the option of an outdoor pool is that competition size. I think that would be absolutely necessary for a project like this. So yeah, definitely perked my interest. So thank you very much for presenting tonight.
Thank you. And may I say something? I just wanted to say that, you know, we envision this project being a West Shore thing. It wouldn't necessarily sit right on Colwood shoulders. I mean, I'm sure that it's going to benefit all the municipalities on the West Shore. So that could be, you know, in partnership or, you know, in conjunction with other municipalities, which we talked about, and maybe even the city of Victoria, because it's going to benefit everyone. So.
Councillor Jensen.
Oh, thank you, Worship. This is great. I know we've batted it around a bit here. Some of the notes I made myself were some of the wraparound costs, which I know Councillor Ward spoke to, as far as, we would have to, and sorry, then it occurred to me, as the West Shore Parks Board rep for the community here, we are looking for opportunities to partner out into the community to support recreation. For instance, they manage some of the field bookings and what have you for fields in our area. And we have started down the road of a dialogue regarding what another or our own rec center would look like, potentially in that Royal Bay area is where we're looking. So to answer your question, the answer is yes. The timing is impeccable in the sense that we are going to be looking at plotting out what the quarry park looks like. And it ranges everything from, soccer field to lacrosse box to why not explore this as an opportunity as well. And West Shore Parks, the pools there are approaching, I dare say, end of life, but we're going to be squeezing out some more years with some maintenance. So we will be looking to expand, our reach as far as pools go. So yes, it is timely, and we should have this dialogue, and I fully support heading down this road. Thank you.
Any other questions? So anyone from council would like to suggest a motion then, please? Councillor Ward.
If I may, your worship, I'd like to motion that we direct staff to engage with West Shore Rotary to further examine the feasibility of the project, much like Councillor Jansen alluded to, perhaps in conjunction with the Quarry Park plans and in alignment with West Shore Parks and Recreation. I know that's very wordy, Marcy, but this is me talking. I don't know any other way to speak. So direct staff to engage with West Shore Rotary to continue or facilitate the process of examining the feasibility or find the feasibility study. Mr. Earl, perhaps you have better wording.
I got it.
Yeah, Mike knows what I'm talking about. Mr. Earl, let's
Thank
look
you,
into a
Worship.
pool.
Administration will be pleased to work with West Shore Rotary to return to chambers with the next step on what a feasibility study might look like.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Okay. Councillor Wilson. Discussion. So my only question is, I didn't get a chance to bring it up, but no, it's that as we had discussed before, the operating costs were always the thing that worried me, but that'll come with discussion. But I guess my other question is this something feasible for our population size, or should we automatically be looking at joining with our West Shore partners, neighbors here and doing it that way? So should this be a West Shore initiative, or are you going to the other municipalities?
Well, I mean, it is a possibility, but I mean, because we live in Colwood, we just automatically wanted to speak with you first. But, we do see this as a benefit of the whole of West Shore. So, and that, not one municipality should be handling everything. So I would say that might be a good idea.
Yeah, no, it's just that I would assume that you need a certain population base,
Yes.
to have a pool like this. And
Yeah.
do you know what that is by any chance?
Well, my vision is that the partnership that I'm proposing between Rotary and the city of Colwood is that the city of Colwood, you have the location
Yeah.
and you have the municipal relationships to bring Langford, Colwood, View Royal, Machosen, anywhere else on side. We'll negotiate with the other Rotary groups as well as the other service clubs, as well as the grant proposals and the writing to get the money. But I think you'd be crazy not to involve the other municipalities.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Absolutely.
Councillor Ward.
Mr. Mayor, just in the process of some of the research I did, I would note that two of the independent municipalities, obviously City of Edmonton and Vancouver aside, Moose Jaw's population is about 33,000, so a little bigger than us. But Lake Country, which was looking at a similar project, is 13,000. So we're in the ballpark, but I think engaging with our West Shore partners is logical, particularly in light of our partnership with West Shore Parks and Recreation. But to me, that's what turned the light bulb on, is that we're in the same kind of range in terms of people. And I think, Linda, you really hit on it in that we have a deficiency of these kind of recreation facilities in the South Island region. And I do believe my optimism, I'll freely admit, I was pretty pessimistic at first on the operating cost piece. My optimism comes from the fact that due to the lack of other facilities, we would be looking at a regional draw. So as you said, we pull from Victoria, we pull from other areas because this is a limited option for people. Therefore, you know, from a programming standpoint and cost recovery standpoint, it might just be doable. So that's sort of the reasoning behind the motion and my optimism on it.
Thanks very much. Councillor Day.
Thanks. I want to thank you for your presentation and just, you know, it's a tall order. It really is. A number of the outdoor pools that I'm aware of on the island, there's one in Courtney, for example, they have existed for a very long time. I think the one in Courtney was built with the Centennial Grant, which our first pool was actually built with the Centennial Grant as well, which was then replaced with the current configuration of pools at West Shore Parks and Rec. And it's going to be a delicate dance regionally between West Shore Parks and Rec and the Capital Regional District, who does do a lot of the recreation. So I think there's a lot of working out to be done. I do think it is going to be a long time before this could come to fruition. But I don't want to discourage you, but I would say that I have a very frugal outlook in terms of the need on the recreation side. If for no other reason than because for many, many years, recreation has received support kind of at the expense of the arts. And we've been working for years now towards an arts facility. So I'm not saying that there isn't an opportunity there. I'm just saying there's an awful long bumpy road ahead of us to figure this out. And I wouldn't be being very fair or honest if I didn't name that right off the top. So, you know, I'm very interested. I think it is really good. What I see happening at the community outdoor facilities like the one in Courtney is that they're very helpful, just as you mentioned, when it's very warm out. But there's a lot of times when they're underused too. So we need to really be thoughtful in how we put our money out to build something that's resilient, that, you know, maybe it's multi-purpose, maybe it's more than one thing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we kind of envision it to be is, you know, because there's only a certain amount of months in the year that you can go swimming in, you know, in the summer and stuff like that. So we want to sort of think outside of the box and create other activities, you know, I don't know, like different things that people can get involved with, courses, facilities, you know, circuit training. I mean, things that can draw revenue, like maybe a concession, a cafe. I mean, there's all sorts of ideas that we could talk about. So, I mean, there's definitely, you know, a lot of dialogue to be had.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Councillor Day, I would have been disappointed if you hadn't shared your opinion.
Thanks very much. Can you just reread the motion that's on the floor?
The motion is that staff return or that staff work with the Rotary Club to look at a feasibility study for outdoor aquatic facility.
Okay, thank you very much. Call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike. And Linda. Okay, gonna move on here. Correspondence regarding council direction. These next two items are pretty well self-explanatory, part of your package. The first one was from Kristen Morley, the CRD Corporate Officer, and that is regarding the consent to increase the maximum requisition to permit additional investment into the creation of new affordable rental housing supply, the assembly of land for future use, and protection of existing affordable rental housing. Is there any questions on that? Can I get a mover and a seconder then, please? Okay. Councillor Olson and seconder. Okay, Councillor Grove. Discussion. Oh, sorry?
Sorry, just for clarification, is that for consent?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
It's per the agenda. Yep. Discussion. Yeah. Dean Jensen, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Mayor Kobayashi. I guess we're in a bit of a deficit here. You are our rep. Can you give us the backstory on this and help us?
Sure. I mean, it's the attachment is there, but I can quickly give you a background to this. So we originally went in with with X number, I forget exactly what how many millions it was. And then there were some motions made by some directors that wanted to increase it and take advantage of any opportunities, if there was opportunities that came available. So they asked for an increase in the maximum. Lots of debate at committee level on it. In the end, they didn't have my vote at committee, but then they got it at the board level, mainly because I was just outnumbered. No, in all fairness, it was, I did a little bit of thinking and soul searching on it, and I understand why, because, land isn't getting any cheaper, and I kept on stalling and dragging my feet on this forever, and the land kept on going up more and more and more. So, and now it's this opportunity when you have that bank of money and you can take that opportunity to acquire the lands. And I think that's the right thing to do. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be spent, so there is a cap on it.
Yeah, thank you, Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. Normally, I would not be in favor of adding to our requisition to the CRD because it's something we have great difficulty in making any effect on. However, in this case, given that it has already gone to the board, it's had a majority of support, and it only requires 2/3 of that board to make this a reality. It doesn't seem a good idea to oppose this at this time. And it's also doing something for our region that we know that we need, which is to provide for more affordable housing. I don't know how many families you know that are in core housing need, but I know quite a few. And many of them are in our military. They would live pretty much in any part of this region if they could find suitable accommodation for their young families. And so for the greater good, I support this initiative as if there was any particular area that we should invest in, I would say housing, and maintaining the affordable housing stock that we have has to be it. Thank you.
Okay. So call the question. Get all those in favor of the consent. It's unanimous. Opposed, pardon me, opposed. One. Councillor Ward. Okay, 8.2. So motion passes. 8.2, a backpack project at Victoria, BC. I know a little bit about this because I saw it here last year, and it's basically a local initiative. Nikki Otteson, I believe, started it. I think many of you know Nikki, and it just provides mutual aid in the fall and winter months. And the backpacks are full of all the necessities for families and comfort items for Christmas Day. And it's just, for the home, it's basically for those that are homeless in the community. This project starts November 1st and goes to December 21st. And like I said, we've traditionally supported it in the past, and just looking for a motion to continue. Okay, Councillor Jensen and Councillor Day. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay, notice of motion. As I said before, there's no discussion on these items. We just get to each of the councillors to read their notice of motion. Councillor Ward, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps I can summarize. It's a fairly detailed motion. The motion is essentially to have City of Colwood staff research and provide council with a draft bylaw to govern election signs for municipal, provincial, and federal elections, to designate no more than 15 to 20 locations on public land where they can be placed, and then to incorporate some size restrictions. The background on that motion is simply due to the various concerns around visual pollution, actual environmental pollution, and so forth, which will be open for discussion when the motion comes before council.
Can I get a seconder? Or no, we don't need anything. It's just a notice of motion. Councillor Jensen, could you read your notice, your motion, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. 9.2, the motion I've suggested is that staff be directed to bring forward a bylaw amendment options with respect to the use of controlled substances in public places for our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, going on to section 10, new business. Councillor Jensen, I think you were on last week. You're going on this week again, or last meeting, West Shore Parks and Rec verbal update. Over to you, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief. A few updates that the board wished for us to communicate out. First, the fitness room upgrades are complete. I've been in there and had a quick look, and unfortunately I was too busy to use the machines, but they're all beautiful machines, and new bikes and new treadmills, what have you. They've all been evergreen and replaced, and apparently extremely well received. Last board meeting, we received a very detailed report about pickleball and some of the options for location down at the West Shore Parks and Rec facility. And the study that was done identified like half a dozen spots on site. The board selected the most viable, that we felt that was the most viable, as recommended by the expert, and it is immediately adjacent to the existing tennis courts. It's going to be part and parcel with the tennis courts are going to be upgraded as well. There's going to be some resurfacing and what have you for the existing tennis courts. They're going to stay exactly where they are and configured the way they are. And then they've identified a plot of land immediately adjacent. Now, the net benefit to this is we are looking as a board at the board. The board is looking at the possibility of placing a bubble over all of the tennis courts. And with the co-location for the courts and the pickleball and the tennis side by each, we are told that the one bubble can encompass everything. So it's exciting, and it's opportunistic because it's a private company that wants to come and put a bubble over with some kind of reciprocal agreement with the facility as far as operation and use of that. But we get the bubble remains there on site. It's heated, it's there's lighting, etc. So the net benefit to the entire community is that it can be used year round, even 24/7 if we want. So it maximizes the use of that space. So it's exciting, and we're working through the details. Second quarter financial report, bottom line is it was very positive, and use of the facility is up at a higher than anticipated rate based on the last few years when they had to adjust the numbers based on the COVID closures. So our financial officer was happy to report that there's a higher usage, and so we're going to see a net benefit at the end of the fiscal year. Unfortunately, the sad news is they're anticipating roughly a 4% lift right now for our community. That's pre-budget. We haven't started the budget process, and that's what the forecasted lift is at this point in time. Before we've really taken a deep dive into that, it was 5% last year. So there is some time and some room for that to change based on the sort of the year-end results. So that's it. Thank you, Worship. I'm happy if there's any questions.
Councillor Ward.
Not so much a question, but a thank you, Councillor Jansen, as a member of the West Shore Pickleball Association and a pass holder at West Shore Parks and Recreation. It's an ongoing topic of discussion that as the inclement weather hits, that the demand far exceeds the available supply of time or capacity. And in all seriousness, I mean, these are folks who pay above and beyond their membership typically, or don't have a membership. They come from around the region. So they're more than willing to pay a fee to be there. They're usually a fairly, reasonably a demographic with pocket change that can afford it. And I think there's a huge opportunity with these enclosed courts. So I'm glad to hear that the board has noticed that.
Interestingly, part of the, and you have to read the study, and I'm not sure it should be available publicly on our webpage, or certainly I have a copy if someone wants to see it, but part of the inquiry by the expert was to take a look at what our actual need is in the West Shore. And it was very interesting because one of the proposals that came forward that actually I was interested in was let's build more courts than we actually need. Because there's an option there for 8 courts on site as opposed to the 6 that's recommended. Interestingly, they crunched the usage data across the region, and there's only something like 80 users in that group that are from the West Shore, and the rest are from around the region. It's not a negative. It's our responsibility as a facility operator is to understand what our need is out here. And so we split the difference rather than 4, we went with 6. And so there's room for some expansion. But the other piece to that is there's a couple of the courts they do indoors in the dry room there, or sorry, the multi-purpose room. And then also we do have the ability to convert the lacrosse box into some courts, with the idea being that we are now at the point where we can hold a large gathering of pickleballers, which apparently these tournaments are very popular, and it's a huge draw to the region for hotels and what have you. So there, I hope that answers your question.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
Worship.
Going to go on to item 10.2, Kelsey Fielden, rezoning 641 Latoria Road.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm here tonight to answer any questions you may have regarding the rezoning application for 641 Latoria that was introduced at the Planning and Land Use Committee last week. The applicant is also here this evening to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'm wondering the covenant area that's been added from the reports to the Planning and Land Use Committee is 21% of the property, with an existing covenant over a larger area that's now being proposed for the common area. And that area won't really be protected then from disturbance. Is that correct?
Through the chair, if I'm understanding the question correctly, 21% will be the protected covenant area. The other 29% that is considered the open space is just that. It will just be considered landscaping open space that isn't environmentally covenanted.
Okay, thank you. And the existing protected area, that 29%, that does belong to this developer?
Through the chair. So the existing environmental protection area is an Olympic view, which is not part of this specific application. It is the 21% is on the private property of this application, which just happens to be connecting to the one on a adjacent property.
Okay, thank you. So in the report, it said that 40% of the property was being protected, but it is not. It's only 21%.
Yeah, so through the chair, the 21% is environmentally covenanted protected, that will always stay protected. The other 29%, which will make up the 51% total for open space, that is correct, the 29% won't be covenanted protected. It will not be built upon, it will be considered landscaping. But it's
So what I was getting at was you said it's part of the Olympic view, that proposal that protected that 29% is not actually part of this development.
Maybe we'll clarify by starting with the policy from the official community plan. So the official community plan asks for 40% of any hillside lot to be pursued as part of an open space. So the open space definition in the development in the official community plan includes private and public space. And the definition for open space does not specifically speak to undisturbed open space. It just speaks to 40% of a hillside property or greenfield site should be open space. And it could be incorporating anything that is not buildable, as well as a proportion of the lands that should be maintained as protected and undisturbed. So in this particular application, 21% of that of the lot area is protected under a covenant with no disturbance to happen in that 21%. And then there's an additional 29% where there's no building located and where there is, it's considered open space because there is landscaping, there is pathways, walkways, retaining walls, and basically is not a buildable.
So my question is, who owns the 29%? Is it a part of this development? It doesn't appear to be.
No, it is common property. It will be strata common property. So it is not associated with a given unit. It is open space. So
I understand open space. I'm trying to understand how you arrived at the percentages of open space. So it seems that this open space was counted towards a previous development, and now it's being counted towards this development.
No, I think there was some, we were not understanding your question at the beginning. So there is a covenant area that sits on Olympic View along the edges of this property. And so the 21% of covenant space is effectively adding to that undisturbed buffer of Olympic View. But the 21% and 29% have no relationship to Olympic View. We brought it up because it is an adjacent condition. So we are expanding the amount of covenant space, but the 29% and 21% calculations, they are specific to this development as how we rationalize the open space calculation.
I guess what I'm looking for is to understand what is the total size of this development and what percentage of it is.
It is in the staff report. So if you look at page, can you tell me where's that? Like, so the staff report includes a table that does the breakdown, that references the size of the lot, the size of the covenant space, and the size of the open space that is considered landscaping and will be future strata property.
Yes, I read the report. That's where I came up with the questions. So the map that's in the report shows the covenant area as 21%, shows the open space at 29%. But it doesn't look like on the map it's part of this development. It's part of Olympic View's other development.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sam Ganong with Formwell Homes. the developer of the property. The 29% and the 21% are contained on the property. So are part of our development proposal. So the 29 plus 21 equals 50% total green space, part of our application.
Okay. My next question is in regards to the 73 city trees that are to be removed for the frontage works. And I'd like to know why the city did not allow room for these to be retained when the roundabout was planned.
So the reason that the trees will need to be removed is to enable the cross section of Latoria Road. So to add a sidewalk, a bike lane, there is no room to put these amenities on the north side of the road because the creek is right at the edge of the road. So any expansion to the existing road to add basic pedestrian and cyclist amenities will need to be done on the south side of the road. So irrespective of roundabout or not, if there is to be a sidewalk and a bike lane, at a minimum on that road, it will need to be on the south side. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the trees are located on the road right away.
Great. And is it not possible to mitigate that number of trees being lost through the retention of a tree boulevard?
We will explore that through further development permit and building permit to see what alignment can be achieved. I guess we did caution. We've done a lot of learning about trying to preserve trees and go around with sidewalks and I'm going to say road amenities on Wishart Road, where we've tried to retain trees and they have progressively died, or we've seen the loss of trees despite our best effort to retain. So we approach those efforts with caution because they may not always yield preservation, but we will explore.
And I'm concerned about the environmental impacts only because with replacing 73 trees, that is a very large number. Those trees perform some functions for the city. They absorb a lot of water, they trap a lot of carbon, and there may be impacts. So I feel like we're not quite getting enough information about the environmental functioning of areas as they're being developed. Do you have any plan to address that shortcoming?
No, not yet. I mean, we are developing an urban forest strategy, and we hope that through that development of the strategy, we have a way to look at greenfield development through a lens of climate change and ecological impacts. I mean, it is greenfield, so it is not kind to an urban canopy or protection of trees. So recognizing the context of Colwood, where we do a lot of development on the greenfield, I think our urban forest framework will need to help us walk through those difficult conversations. What is the value of trees? Where can we and should we accommodate housing and development, and the value that it adds to our community to continue to accommodate much needed housing? And then where do we preserve and maintain tree canopy and enhance?
Thank you. I'd like to see that happen more through our site adaptive planning processes, because that is enshrined in our OCP, was a result of deep community consultation that wanted us to protect those natural functioning systems. And if we don't understand how they work, we certainly can't protect them. Thanks.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. my iPad chose an inopportune moment to update technology, but I thought it might be helpful as well, in lieu of minutes, to provide some context from the Land Use and Planning Committee discussion on this project. You know, we have one of the members, Michael, at the back of the room there as well. There was a fairly robust discussion around this this proposal, and ultimately it was forwarded to council with the unanimous agreement that it should go forward. The focus was more so on the project. First of all, on traffic impact. Certainly my concern was, you know, allowing another direct entry to Latoria Road in fairly close proximity to the new roundabout. However, I felt that, and in fact, the committee, I believe, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but everyone seemed to agree that the movement, the relocation of the first phase driveway from the east end of the property to the west side of the property, moving it away from the roundabout, was a significant change. In a perfect world, you know, my belief was that the access point to this property would come from Olympian Way or the road behind it, but that's not possible. And we have to understand the realities that this developer's package or parcel of property is constrained on all sides by other property that they do not own and do not have access to. So all things considered, I think they made a fairly significant design change to accommodate the entry and egress. Some of the other questions raised were around parking. You know, it obviously meets the parking bylaws. The concern was, okay, is there enough visitor parking? Again, those concerns are mitigated by the fact that there is no spillover effect. That's been a concern in other areas, and we heard members of the community reference that tonight. But in this case, there is simply nowhere else for people to go. They wouldn't be able to go park on Latoria. That's a no parking area. And frankly, if they're going to park, you know, a 10-minute, 15-minute walk away, well, all power to them. There really is no impact on the, you know, surrounding neighborhoods. So that and the built form, the consensus was that the proponent had designed a project that fit into the slope of the property to such an extent that it would minimize the impact on the homes behind. And if I'm being quite honest, it's not a major concern. These homes were built very recently, within the last year in most cases, so they'd be well aware of the application that existed. And then also some of I think the early adopter approaches were really received well by a number of members of the committee around using carbon capture concrete, looking at roughing in level 2 EV adapters, solar ready homes. So very much looking to a future state in terms of design and build. And lastly, with the tree replacement policy, Colwood's is obviously 2-to-1. The proponent had proposed that they would in fact partner with a Canada Trees group and replace trees at a ratio of 10-to-1. So ultimately that led to the Land Use Planning Committee unanimously pushing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't rehash what Councillor Ward has stated, but I too am a part of that committee, and a couple of things that resonated with me were along the same lines. Some of the green features that were presented, but also as far as the boulevard goes, there's some time on our side in that regard, because my understanding from Mr. Rosenberg is that those works aren't going to happen on the frontage anytime soon as far as our property goes. And so there's some time for some planning and perhaps some strategies to try and resolve the tree conflict, whether some can be saved or with a simple, where we've, I'm trying to think of the tree up here that was, we rerouted the sidewalk around the tree just around the corner here. So there is an opportunity for that. So it's not an all or nothing issue as far as the boulevard goes, and it could be a number of years. So I supported it there, and I do support it now. The one question I had, Jasmine, it comes up regularly, and it helped me out. The section 219 covenant, it just says 219 covenant. Does it say covenant to who has ownership or access to that property? Is it the community that now owns it since it's covenanted, or it will be?
So the city has a template, section 219 covenant for environmentally protected areas. So they are not owned by the city, but they are, it sets an obligation on the strata or the property owner to maintain them, minimize disturbance. To that covenant, we attach the environmental impact assessment so the property owners are aware of the environmental value that those lands hold. And we also get a statutory right of way, so the city staff can and are allowed to enter the premises to monitor that, in fact, the maintenance or the non-disturbance of the land is being abided by. So the city staff have the right to enter covenanted areas, but they are not publicly accessible lands, nor are they meant to be accessible by the strata residents either. They are really meant to be spaces of environmental limit where there's limited disturbance. And we discussed this at the Planning and Land Use Committee about how the applicant even brought up opportunities where if we allow encroachment into that area, could there be a playground? Could there be other features to support the livability of the strata? And we are always challenged. Environmental protection, the more that we allow human activity to take place on those lands, the least environmental value does it hold over time, as people inevitably will make trails, and then that use of human and that space will expand over time. So we do see it as an environmental area, no disturbance and no use by humans, expecting that the wildlife can occupy that space.
And I mean, it brings up the question, and I know we've had the debate around this table, whether it's preferable as park space or preferable as a covenanted location. So you don't need to delve into that because I know we've had that discussion. But just interestingly too, the committee did talk about play places, and I was reminded when you said that, and I've since been contacted by the developer at Olympia View, who's advised that not too far away there is a planned playground that's going in at the Olympia View area. So thank you.
Councillor Ward, you making the motion now?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I will, I'd like to make a motion on 10.2 that council accept the staff recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Jensen, you're going to second? Okay. Any discussion? Councillor Day?
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge the hard work of staff, and there are a number of things that came forward at the Planning and Land Use Committee that are commendable, including the green building features, some of the offsite works, and the critical root zone protection. I think those are all really important and great steps. Unfortunately, I am not able to support the application tonight, but I just want you to know that that doesn't mean that I don't see good work happening.
Thanks so much. Seeing no other hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? Just Councillor Day opposes. Motion carries. I'm going to take a short, sorry about this. I'm going to take a short health break here for 5 minutes because everybody will be back at 8:25. Yeah.
Me too.
So we'll open up with 10.3 and Desiree is, oh yeah, there's Desiree. Okay. Desiree, that's the rezoning of 2324 Souk Road, the proposed amendment to development agreement conditions.
Thank you, Mayor. So the application for 2324 Souk Road is before you tonight for first reading. And prior to you considering first reading of the amending bylaw, we wanted to bring forward a couple of different additional development agreement conditions for your consideration. As you're aware, a resolution was passed at the August 28th meeting, which asked staff to explore the feasibility of sewer extension in collaboration with the applicant. The engineering department has done this, and prior to adoption, will require detailed design drawings to be provided in order to provide definite confirmation that sewer can be extended to Linlark Place, and to provide some details as to how that's going to be achieved. But the reason this is before you tonight, by staff are recommending additional development agreement conditions, is because the August 28th resolution didn't include the securing of the sewer extension. So we'd like to add that as condition to the agreement, along with the applicant's promise of 3-bedroom units and mitigation measures to help with construction impacts to adjacent neighbors. The applicant is in attendance today, and they've reviewed the application and the staff report recommendation, and they have no concerns with what's being proposed. The only thing that they would like to change is the timing of the sanitary sewer extension. They'd like this to be adjusted from prior to the issuance of a building permit to prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. So I'm available if you have any questions on the additional development agreement conditions that are being proposed tonight. And again, this application will be before you for first reading later tonight.
Thank you very much. I'll open. Lord, Councillor Day, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm for the public whether or not there would be a public hearing on this application.
So according to the Local Government Act, public hearing is not required for applications that are consistent with the official community plan. So the previous recommendation was to not hold a public hearing. This is considered the opportunity for public input, and that's why all the residents have been notified in mail of this opportunity to provide their input prior to council considering first reading. So this is the public hearing essentially.
Great, thank you. So to that end, I will just confirm that I will be supporting the amendments that are here tonight because they represent what was presented to council. But when this comes forward at the bylaws, I will have something to say then.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. And I too believe that the amendments are suitable. And then I'm going to reserve my comments actually when the bylaw comes forward to Worship. Further commentary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that just to remind everyone that we are just this is just on the amendments. So it's not the actual bylaw itself. Just quickly. Well, did someone else want a question? Yeah, I just had one quick question. So the nuisance bylaw that we have there, the noise nuisance, does that also include like nuisance for a junky construction area? I don't know how to state this right now. That's always been an issue though in a lot of the construction sites, right? It's not only the noise, but it's the junk that's created and stuff flies all over the place. And that's all, I always hear that all the time. So do we have something that covers that? Oh, here comes a bylaw guy. He's coming to take me away. Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, you have it. Under our unsightly premise bylaw, it deals with unsightly construction sites, so stuff blowing around and what you mentioned.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rick. Super. Okay, seeing no other comments, I will call the question. All those in favor of, oh, sorry, yes, I'm sorry. Okay, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Olsen seconds it. Discussion. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so motion passes. Next is Mr. Andrews, Galloping Goose Bridge, award of contract. I don't think they got the message. Someone didn't get the message because everyone was writing in the 55 messages that you got were writing in and say, please approve it. Well, it's been approved.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then I'll quickly,
Please,
quickly go through the spiel, because it was mostly in camera, the discussions we've had before. So Galloping Goose Trail, when it crosses the Souk Road, is currently an awkward crossing, which requires users to detour down to Whale Road and cross at the lights there. And so Colwood's taking the initiative to construct a bridge that is a safer and seamless connection that will encourage use. The procurement of the designer and contractor started in 2022 when 4 proponents were identified through a request for pre-qualifications. And the 4 proponents were then asked to submit to a request for proposals, RFP, for the design build of the bridge. Once the RFP closed, the 4 proponents presented their designs to council, and additional information on the submissions was also provided by both the proponents and staff. Through the RFP selection, council ranked SureSpan Incorporated as the preferred design contractor. And so tonight, staff are seeking council's approval to award the design build contract to SureSpan, as the contract value is greater than the corporate signing authority. So staff recommends that the contract be awarded to SureSpan, that council authorize mayor and corporate officer to sign the design build construction contract, and that the portion of the bridge not funded by the grant we have secured be funded through the general operating accumulated surplus and the capital projects reserve fund. More information is in the report, but if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Josh. Any other questions? If not, can I get a mover, please? Councillor Day, seconder, Councillor Grove. Discussion? Don't give me that death look, please. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? You don't want the bridge built. Okay, Councillor, well, for the record, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Olson, opposed. Thank you very much. Okay, into bylaws. Bylaw number 1977, Land Use Amendment, CD 40, 641 Latoria. That's what we just discussed tonight. First and second reading. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Jordison and Councillor Grove. Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing what Councillor Day opposes. Motion carries. 11.2 bylaw number 1990, Parks Development Cost Charge Bylaw Adoption. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Day and Councillor Jordison. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, unanimous, motion carries. Bylaw number 1999, Sign Bylaw Amendment. CD 38 zone. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Grove, Councillor Jensen. Discussion? Seeing none? Sorry. Councillor Day.
So the sign bylaw amendment is for the CD 38 zone, which is 641 Latoria. I just would like that confirmed.
Yes, that is correct for 641 Latoria, yes.
Okay, and this is for an oversized sign?
Pardon me.
Why is the amendment required?
The sign District B is the sign bylaw for most townhome developments, usually for the podium signs at the entrance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Day? And the motion carries. Thank you. 11.4, bylaw number 2002, nuisance abatement and cost recovery. First, second, and third readings. May I get a mover and seconder, please? Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. Yes, of course. Sorry, Rick.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present a staff report for nuisance abatement and cost recovery bylaw. The recommendation for this report is that the council provide 3 readings of this bylaw. The summary and the purpose of this report is for council to consider approving a nuisance abatement and cost recovery bylaw to help mitigate repeat nuisance properties within the city of Colwood. Back in 2023, early this year, it was a councillor priority of the bylaw services department is for staff to explore a nuisance bylaw for repeat offenders where staff such as police, bylaw, and fire would be charged back to the offender. Over the past year, bylaw service have been dealing with 3 repeat offending properties in Colwood. All 3 properties have had over 5 complaints against them within the last year. One property has had 96 RCMP files generated within the last year, and 26 of those files could be classified as a nuisance if this bylaw goes through. Currently, the city of Colwood does have ticketing in place to deal with property owners who do not wish to comply with the city bylaws, but these mentioned properties owners have been ticketed multiple times, and yet the bylaw violations still continue. With the introduction of the nuisance abatement and cost recovery bylaw, if council were to declare a property a nuisance, any fees for a offense or a repeated offense, if unpaid before December 31st, it could be added onto their property taxes. Options or alternatives that council provide 3 readings of the nuisance abatement and cost recovery bylaw 2002. Number 2, that council direct staff to return with additional information or further amendments. And 3, that council take no action. Be happy to answer any questions if there are questions.
I thank your worship. I'm strongly in support of this bylaw, and this discussion has been ongoing for, quite frankly, as long as I've been on council, and my wish is to move in this direction. So kudos to the current bylaws administration to get this to the finish line. This is something that communities use as a tool to deal with the worst of the worst properties or calls for service or people who are generating calls. Our neighboring community has a similar one. Langford's had it for a number of years, and it's a valuable tool that both the RCMP and the bylaw services in Langford work collaboratively to address some of these ongoing issues. So this is not new ground. This is something that's tried and true. And like I say, most communities have something in this regard. It does allow for the option of cost recovery for these residences that draw a lot of our public services or first responders time and energies, whether it be the fire service or the police department or bylaws for that matter. So I'm firmly in support of this, and it is a good tool for our bylaws department to have in their arsenal. And I think that this should be supported by this people at this table. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Day.
Thank you. I did send questions in, but did not get a response today. I have a bit of a concern with the implications of the bylaw in that the report indicated that 3 properties have had repeated issues with little effect from bylaw. And it further indicated that this resulted in RCMP cases going forward. So I'm wondering why bylaw needs to do this rather than the RCMP pursuing it.
So through the chair, I'll just clarify. We've had 5 calls for this one property where the RCMP have attended. The 96 calls, it has nothing to do with this, like what we've done. Bylaw here at City of Colwood have attended this property multiple times. I asked for stats for the RCMP. How many times have they been there to this property? and what calls could be classified as a nuisance according to this bylaw. They came back with 26. If this bylaw was in place, the city could be charging this homeowner for 26 calls for service under this nuisance abatement bylaw.
Okay. And those complaints could not be pursued by the RCMP? Given they had 96 calls, it doesn't seem like the RCMP is having any impact on this property owner either.
In this bylaw, it could be I don't know what they intended for, but when I got the stats back saying that the 26 could be classified, that could have been fighting, yelling, revving, partying. So at that time, yes, they dealt with it. With this one property that I'm mentioning, it's just an ongoing concern. It's been issued tickets, the tickets go nowhere. It's more than one complainant, it's multiple neighbors complaining about this property. So with this bylaw in place, I think it would make the homeowner realize, hey, the city of Colwood is serious here. Either way, I'm gonna have to pay eventually, whether it goes on my property taxes, and if they defer it, eventually the city will get their cost recovery back.
Okay. And have we had a legal opinion on the bylaw?
No, we have not. This is sort of mirrored off another bylaw. I've contacted the city of Nanaimo. They've had excellent success on their bylaw. They've had 30 nuisance properties. And with this bylaw in place, they were able to get that nuisance property number down to 10 properties by this bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? Okay, can I get someone to move the staff recommendation, please? Oh, Councillor Jordison and Councillor Grove, thank you very much. Discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thanks very much, Rick. Okay, bylaw number 2003 land use amendment. So that's for the development agreement. No, it's not. This is, yeah, CD 40 23-24. Yeah, first and second reading. That's for the proposed amendments to the development agreement conditions. Oh, sorry, no, I jumped in. No, I'm 11.5. It's bylaw number 2003. Yeah. No, that's the 23-24 suit, first and second reading. That's on the land use amendment. We just voted on right now. So can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Jensen, are you moving or are you talking to it? Okay. A mover, seconder, and then I'll let you motivate. Seconders, Councillor Ward, go ahead, Councillor Jensen.
Sorry, I am going to move it just to get the discussion going. I'm struggling a little bit with this. This application, I believe, was supported through the process of the Planning and Land Use Committee. We heard a presentation here previously, and the part I made a note of here is, I heard something new this evening. Yes, we heard from many residents, and I applaud them for their engagement in this process. But some of the issues are identified as parking, traffic flow, some of the height, the trees, and a question mark about the sewers. But what struck me was when a fellow by the name of Rob on Souk Road, who identified himself as a neighbor, his mother being the neighbor to the property, and expressing his willingness to sell, or their willingness to sell. We heard in chambers here from a realtor, or I believe there was a letter from a realtor that was included in our previous package, that they had exhausted all attempts to sell and had moved past that point. Now tonight we hear from a neighbor that that's not the case, which leads me to question, have we fully explored this? I know, or I believe, because I've gone through it with staff, that this project is far better with the acquisition of a neighboring property. as far as the way the buildings are configured, the access, the egress, the whole works. So in essence, I'm not sure, and I don't believe at this point that this has been fully exhausted. And that information is contrary to what we heard in chambers, which then raises a few questions for me. Were the attempts made, we did hear from Rob saying that it sounds like his mother took some offense in how those attempts or approaches were made to her and by whom and how they unfolded. And I think he used the word, sharks were circling or something to that effect, if memory serves. So have we exhausted every opportunity to put forward a better, more fulsome project with the acquisition of the neighboring property? Now, I do want to state that, this stretch of Souk Road is going to change. And I'm speaking here to some of the residents that are here in the building. That is within zoning, and a lot of work has been done on the OCP by members of this community that identifies areas of growth for us in the community, for us to abide by. So in essence, this stretch of roadway is going to change. Do we have some control over the how? And with some of the creative ideas from our staff and from members of the community and how we go about that, yes, we have some control over that. But the reality is, this community has been identified as one that needs to build for the future, and for people that we will welcome to our community in the future. My two 20-somethings, they don't have a place to live in our community, and it's probably not in the foreseeable future. So are we building to that demographic? Are we inviting young families and people that need a start, as we were all invited to this community some numbers of years ago? So I'm going to yield, your worship, but those are some of my concerns. I am willing to wrap around, put some rubber on the metaphoric road there as needed, but I'll yield and wait to hear what my peers have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I think it's really important that we all want to build housing in Colwood in places where it works. But I really feel that I've heard from a lot of the community on this development and others, and about the inequity. Your neighbors shouldn't have the right to do things on their property that directly impact yours. You shouldn't have to live in the shadow of a tall building. You shouldn't have to cut down your trees because they're no longer safe. And, our official community plan was one that said we're going to be respectful of our neighbors. And yes, I know not everybody can be pleased every time, but when I heard this proposal, it was a very, very long meeting. I was pleased that there would be some 3-bedroom suites available for people, but there's a lot of things that aren't available in this, including a really beneficial way to deal with the cars, the vehicles. And there's a considerable number of properties that may never redevelop as something else, but exist in our community. And I don't think that they should be trampled on in order to make room for others. So I think that the hearing tonight, that there is an opportunity to do a better project with more land, because I distinctly remember that being a discussion at the council table, where the proponent said it would be better to have more land, that they had tried to get more land, but it wasn't possible. And we have heard the opposite here tonight. Our job as a council, I feel, is to put the best possible project forward And I know that's going to be different depending on when it comes forward, what you have and what you can achieve. But I think this is one where we could do better, and we could do better in a short time frame to build a better development with better amenities for a better community.
Councillor Jordison?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to agree with both Councillor Jansen and Councillor Day. I just I feel the same that tonight we heard some different information, and you know, I really feel that a lot of the older neighborhoods are, I guess, depending where they're placed or whatever, but they're ending up with these large buildings backing onto them. And I just think that, you know, a lot of the developers are rushing right to the largest building that they can put there instead of maybe thinking about outside the box and other kind of ways to build next to existing neighborhoods. And I also, I too think that this would be better if there was more property. It's fitting a lot on a small parcel. So I won't be able to support this tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Grove?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Interestingly enough, I too heard the fellow identified as Rob speak to the fact that, as Councillor Jensen pointed out, to the fact that there was some interest there. It seems to me that there needs to be more consultation based upon that. What I heard, it changed things significantly for me. The fact that the proponent was interested in the property and made a considerable effort to acquire it, apparently, and is what we heard in the previous time, that this project would benefit a great deal from that. And driving past, looking at the site, seems to be, it's intuitive. It makes sense. I'm no developer, so I'm basing it on the fact that they spoke to the fact they tried very hard to purchase this land, apparently. And I really, it changed for me significantly the perspective. If property lines are less congested, if there's more opportunity for saving more trees, perhaps allowing for a better buffer, then it seems to me that's the aspect that I think would hurt the most. The OCP speaks to this transition notion, which we have a very hard time doing it when you have single family homes up against this Souk Road. We see it along the corridor in various places. And that leads to what I think is referred to as a zoning wall, where you have tall buildings next to single family homes. And if you look at an aerial view of a corridor, you can see it running along. This is not, there's precedent. I know there's an example I looked at not long ago of I believe it was Yonge Street in Toronto North. And it's quite distinctively a problem, and it's spoken to as a problem by the urban planners in the article I was looking at anyhow. So I would like to see more consultation happen to pursue this notion about perhaps improving this situation, because it seems to me there could be an improvement to some of the issues that were spoken to by residents. The traffic issue, I'm afraid, I've grown up in the street not far away, not grown up, lived for over 20 years, where, I'm sorry, but there's just so many more cars on the road. We've all had to deal with the fact that there's no place for our kids to play road hockey anymore because there's cars parked everywhere. There seems to be a huge increase in the number of cars per house just parked on the streets, and there's trailers and campers and boats. It's really changed a lot, and I'm not sure that's distinctly a fault of this particular project for sure. And I'm not sure that is something that can be dealt with. The parking requirement is met. The tree replacements will be done. The landscaping, traffic access can be dealt with. For me, though, it's this orientation to Souk Road that may be improved. I've gone on long enough. I mean, just to say that it catches me in a way that suddenly I find myself hesitating significantly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll let Councillor Ward speak first time. Okay, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would state that these are always the most difficult discussions and decisions that we're faced, as a council, I think, because development in Colwood has historically been so contentious and continues to be and likely will be well into the future. We are not Langford. We are not Victoria. We're not a lot of other jurisdictions. We have our own unique issues and concerns. So, obviously hearing the residents this evening, I'm very sympathetic to what you have to say and your concerns, and, they're valid. I think anybody who is a homeowner, renter, resident, whatever it might be in Colwood, your opinion is valued and it should be taken into consideration. By the same token, I don't want to leave out the other stakeholder. I think the applicant, Land Vision, has demonstrated a willingness to come to the table in fairness with their interactions with staff and the Land Use and Planning Council, and then this council. They have amended their design. They've, scaled back to 4 stories on the north side of the property where it abuts against the neighbors there. Explored sewer, because the belief, and perhaps I'm a little naive, is that I hear a lot in our community about we want access to sewer. And so as a council person, I've sought, okay, how, ways to do that. And then we're hearing, well, in fact, in Linlark, maybe that's not the case. So again, a very difficult balancing act. My question really is more for Mr. Earl, our CAO. When we are speaking here now, based on the commentary during public participation about, sort of anecdotal witness to a conversation about the ability to buy a property or not buy a property, how do we weight that against the sort of testimony, if you will, of the applicant, who has stated that they have made offers well above fair market value? And the sense I get in the room is that there's a willingness to base a decision on this, where effectively we're taking away any leverage from the applicant in terms of the price that they might offer for a piece of property, handing that to a property owner who then is in position to say, your development doesn't happen unless you pay me. And from a legal standpoint, that's solely my question is, what exposure do we have there? Are we effectively dictating the market and exposing ourselves to other concerns that aren't related to the emotion of the moment?
Mr. Earl. Thank you, Your Worship. I don't think there's an exposure to the municipality. As this application moved through our process, staff were providing advice to this and committee chambers relative to the transit zoning and size of this property relative to the recommendation within that template bylaw. An individual or council collectively can hear things at a public hearing or during a session that they can then use in their decision making as they best feel. And so if an individual member of council hears something that causes you to want to receive additional information, that's your right individually, and ultimately council's right collectively.
Yep, thank you very much, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. This will be my final kick at the can, I promise. But I do believe that there is a fit for this property, and I know I supported it when it was previously at the table. And however, I'm struggling a bit, and it seems like the community has questions. We have some questions. And there's enough there that I would offer a motion. As I said, I'm willing to put my at least try to mitigate some of this in its current configuration. And with the information I have, I'm more than likely would oppose my own motion, which creates an awkwardness, but I'm willing to go down that road. But I would like to make a motion that we defer this for a period of time to allow for some of the answers to percolate, Your Worship. That'd be my motion.
Okay, do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Grove, thank you. Discussion on so this is an amendment, or no?
It's
For a motion to defer, right? That's right, no debate. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so, sorry, motion doesn't. Okay, back to the original motion. Any other, Councillor Day, sorry.
I just, the way the conversation's gone, I just wanted to make sure that my position is clear to both the public and the rest of the table. I have always tried to maintain that it is the developer's responsibility to get the community on side, not mine. This council table is here to represent the citizens of Colwood. I've tried to always make sure as best I can that my vote reflects that. And if the community is not won over by development, I really believe that that should direct my vote at this table.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Olson.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to this particular project. This is not one that I was in favor of at our last meeting, and my opinion of that has not changed. I do still feel very much that this project, the scale of it is far too large for this lot size. So if there's an opportunity to defer it, to have further conversation around the table, that would have been ideal for me, but I won't be in favor of this project moving forward.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other comments, I guess I can comment now. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. There's some new things that just popped up tonight and I went, didn't know that. So can I get is there some way of checking because that one citizen stated that you know, he absolutely the discussions didn't really happen, or there wasn't. Did you get the gist of that? I thought he said that there was no proper offer or something like that, or his mother didn't know. I was trying to figure out what he stated. Does anyone have any? Oh, okay. Applicant, right, Rachel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. Yeah, the Realtor for Land Vision did make overtures to the mother of the owner. Sorry, I wasn't here earlier in the evening, but perhaps Harj could elaborate further.
Yeah, so we did have a Realtor represent us. There was an offer on the table, but the buyer of the property essentially wanted a 7-day rescission period where she could get legal advice. We can provide the Realtor acting for us was Kamal Dodd, and I can have him actually file affidavit. We can show the paperwork. Essentially, the seller of the property then changed their mind and said, we no longer want to sell the property. And they had the 7-day rescission period and said, I no longer want to sell the property. I guess it was more of a family thing, and we can get something in writing and show the paperwork that demonstrates all that. So what was said today was actually very incorrect of what happened, and we have paperwork logistically that can demonstrate all that. And we can get testimony from the Realtor, Kamal Dodd, who's been in Victoria for a very long time, that represented us on that offer.
Thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
It's a he said, she said sort of situation, that's for sure. So, yeah, this is tough, and I would probably have to agree with Councillor Ward. These are always the worst things you have to decide, you know. And I do agree with Councillor Day, you know, it's not our job to convince the people, you know, living around it, but sometimes, you know, you have to really look at the big picture and you know, how is that what's the future of that area going to look like? And I guess, you know, some of the compromising that we asked them to go back and do is take away some of the, you know, go down to 4 stories on the side that faces the majority of the neighborhood. They basically did everything we asked them to do. And so I guess this is where I'm struggling with this a little bit. I absolutely I've heard the neighborhood loud and clear. I do hear you. And, but yeah, I just need a little bit of just trying to take this all in right now. And that one thing almost switched my mind there when the guy says there was no negotiation, and I went, well, wait a second there, that's not what I heard before, but. Anyways, I do hear the concerns. One of the questions I do have for staff though, before I turn over the mic to someone else, is I think there was a comment made by one of the citizens, and I don't remember reading that information about that intersection being a Class D intersection. Now, is it going to be a Class D? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Well, I know about the roundabout, but I didn't know that intersection itself had one. Maybe I was confused.
I will let John Rosenberg speak to it, but I believe he was referring to the TIA that was done for 2330 Souk Road. So the assessment of traffic volume done at the corner. And I believe it.
I thought it had to do with the roundabout though.
She could have finished the roundabout. There's no roundabout at this time. Souk Road basically is extremely busy. That LOSD is referring to the left turn movement coming off of Linlark onto Souk Road.
They left.
Right, so without the development, it's barely a C and almost a D. With the development, it just slightly turns it to a D. So it goes from 20 seconds of delay to like 26 seconds of delay. So there is an extra delay component there. And I would agree with the crowd that it's likely at occasion you get to PM peak, and we've looked at the traffic model with council, and that is our most congested section of road. So there are times there where if somebody doesn't let you out, you're probably not getting out. But the development's not going to change that. It's just going to mean that instead of one car doing that, 2 cars will have to do that, or 3 cars. But 70 units doesn't really impact Souk Road at all. It would mean you're the 3rd car out of that intersection, say, instead of the 1st car, because of the development at times. The traffic volume increase is minimal on 70 units.
Okay, thanks so much, John. Okay, Councillor Ward, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suspect we could end up going around and around on this for quite some time. But seeing as the primary concern seems to be the ability or potentially the lack thereof, depending on perspective of increasing this lot size, I would like to make a motion that I hope is fair to all parties, that we direct staff, and sorry, Marcy, I'll go slow, that we direct staff to consult with both the applicant and the property owner in question to ascertain the status of a potential deal opportunity. And this doesn't form part of the motion, but actually, sorry, and in addition, and that should be completed in no less than 60 days. I think, and then that's when I speak of, this is the part that's not the motion, motivating a little bit here, is just that I think in fairness to everybody involved, closure is required. And I think we know that the applicant has a significant amount of money on the table. They've waited a year to get to this stage. I'm sure that the good folks on Linlark would like to have some clarity as to the future of that property as well. So I would like to see a report back to council in no less than 60 days time as to what other opportunity there could be.
Okay. Yeah, there is a motion. Yeah, the motion is just to get the conversation going. So
Consider it an amendment.
Okay, it's an amendment. So can I get a seconder on that amendment? Okay, Councillor Jordison will second it. I'll open discussion up on the amendment. Any discussion? Councillor Jordison.
I guess my question on the amendment would be, does that, if the developer or the applicant is potentially able to purchase the property next to it, does that mean that they get double the building? Does that mean that that there's an opportunity to look at what could be placed there and maybe not be a large scale building, it's maybe townhouses, or it's a different sort of thing. That's. Yeah.
My understanding, Councillor Jordison, of this originally, when everything would have been fine, if that piece of property would have been purchased before, then that would have been well within the limits of what we've already approved. So that was my understanding of what the situation, and certainly have staff correct me if I'm incorrect on that.
Yes, so the staff recommendation that went to the Planning and Land Use Committee was originally to impose the transit growth area 1 zone onto this property, which at its current size would only allow for a 4-story building. If they were to acquire the property next door, they would meet the minimum 60-meter frontage requirements under the transit growth area 1 zone. And we were exploring with the applicant accommodating then the 6-story, despite the fact that it may be slightly smaller than the 4,000 square meter requirement. So we were, when the Planning and Land Use Committee directed staff to work with the applicant, we were exploring that, like not taking a straight transit growth area zone without any flexibility, but giving some flexibility as long as they met the frontage. For us, it's a conversation as to what's the best development that would frame Souk Road, where the density should be heavily framing the street as opposed to locating it along the local, the height, locating it along the local road. So that is the context that additional land would conceivably allow us to see a better design that is framing the arterial road as opposed to the local road.
Thank you very much. Councillor Day?
So my question to staff is, with this as an amendment to explore the addition of more property, does that tie our hands in that the bylaw is already written as bylaw number 2003 land use amendment here tonight for first and second reading? If there's more land acquired, doesn't that, I just don't know how that would work going forward.
So the bylaw that is in front of you tonight is what council asked us to do in a motion. So we were asking council to support the transit growth area zone. But council directed us to create a city zone that accommodated the proposal as shown by the applicant. So this zone enables what they are proposing as proposed. So if the proposal as it sits, it's not what council wants, then this is the wrong bylaw to give ratings to, and we would have to come back with a revised bylaw that assesses those conditions. We can evaluate the transit growth area zone, a slight variation on the transit growth area zone, or the city zone. But tonight's city zone is built to suit exactly what was proposed.
Right, so the addition of more land would just be more of the same if we made that as an amendment to this bylaw.
Yes.
Yeah, so we wouldn't actually achieve changing the outcomes.
No, if you want a different outcome, I would hold off readings on a bylaw. This bylaw is built to suit, to enable what was proposed.
Your worship, if I may.
Yes, please, Mr. Earl.
It would be substantially cleaner administratively if council was desirous to support the motion, the amendment that's currently on the floor, rather than amending a motion which gives the bylaw readings, withdraw the motion which gives the bylaw readings and make the motion that Councillor Ward has forwarded. It's a much cleaner approach.
Okay.
Otherwise, you've got the bylaw has first and second reading, and we've been directed to do something else.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely, it's because the two, we've actually been, they're related but not related. You got to separate the two. Okay. Councillor Jensen, before I make a.
Briefly, and maybe I'm a bit simple, but deferral sounded a whole lot better than all this. I'm just saying. So, quite frankly, it's too awkward for me to support it in its current configuration. I express, or I have the same concerns as expressed by Councillor Day. So however you want to clean this up. And if you want to come back to me for a motion to defer, I'll leave that at your discretion, your worship.
What I prefer to do right now, to keep it simple. I can get you to withdraw the motion, but then if this one fails, so I'm always looking at the situations of what could potentially happen. If this fails, then we have nothing. Okay, so could I get you to withdraw your original motion, please? Well, Councillor Ward, can I get you to withdraw your original motion?
Sorry, the original motion or the amendment?
No, the original motion.
Check the steps.
It was moved by Councillor Jensen and seconded by Councillor Ward.
See, I'm not old after all. Councillor Jensen, can I get you to remove your original motion? Oops. Go
If
ahead, Mr.
I may, I could be corrected from across the room. My belief, to unwind this, you first need to undo the amendment, take that off the table,
And then
then you
restart.
can address the original motion.
Okay. So can I get the mover of the amendment to remove? Yeah, okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Ward,
I will move to withdraw the amendment.
and do I get Councillor Jensen as the seconder on that? Okay, thank you. Discussion. Call the question, all in favor? It's to remove the motion, his amendment. Yeah, you do.
And it belongs to the table.
That's right. Okay, favor, any opposed? Seeing none, motion approved. Now we'll get rid of the original, right, and then come up with a, okay. So can I get a motion to remove the original motion, which was yours, Councillor Jensen? Okay, and the seconder was Councillor Ward. You're okay with that, Councillor Ward? Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. So we're back to start. We're too eager to get that motion to discuss when we weren't ready for it. Okay, so someone want to make a motion. Okay, now, Councillor Ward, let's review this again. Councillor Ward.
Refine it somewhat. I would suggest that we direct staff to consult or meet with the applicant as well as the property owner in question to provide council with some determination on the feasibility of expanding the property in a time frame of no more than 60 working days.
Okay. Can I get a seconder on that? Okay, Councillor Day, discussion. That's up. Okay, Councillor Jordison.
Sorry, I just had one question. So what I heard was if the property is acquired, the frontage could be on Soup Road? The frontage of, like, would that change? Would that?
That was
would
never
this-
discussed.
That wasn't discussed?
No.
I thought that's what, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it would meet the requirements. Okay, I get what I got it.
Okay, seeing no other questions. I've been at this since 3, so. All in favor, please. And opposed? Councillor Ward and. You certainly can. So motion passes. Sorry?
Councillor Ward.
Yeah. Okay, going to item 11.6, bylaw number 2004, permissive tax exemption 2024 first, second, and third reading. So the recommendation is that council consider the following organizations for a permissive tax exemption. That's the Pacific Center Family Services Association. That's an existing exemption right now. The Children's Health Foundation of Greater Victoria, that's an existing exemption. The West Side Bible Church it's already an existing exemption. 2250 Souk Road, the Colwood Pentecostal Church, it's an existing exemption. The Church of the Advent, it's an existing exemption. The Colwood Women's Institute, it's an existing exemption. And lastly, the BC Yukon Command of the Royal Canadian Legion Foundation, which is a new application. And did everyone have a chance to read the report? Is someone presenting this one, particular one?
Your worship, pleased to answer any questions you may have. The current permissive tax exemption bylaw expires this year. So if we don't get a bylaw in place this month, these eligible organizations would not be able to receive such an exemption next year. So as you've just mentioned, 6 of the 7 applicants currently receive an exemption from property taxation. There is one new application. This property, you may recall it, Cockrell House. All of these organizations are eligible under legislation. Should this bylaw be adopted this month, it would exempt these properties from taxation. It would not exempt these properties from sewer user fees or sewer parcel taxes, should they be subject to those charges. Pleased to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, draft bylaw is before you for 3 readings tonight.
So question. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may not be a popular take, but I have serious concerns about local government and taxpayers subsidizing entities that could be construed as actively working against certain groups within that community. In this country, we have a right to freedom of religion, but we also have a right to freedom from religion. And over 33% of Canadians don't identify as being religious whatsoever. And of those that do, less than 10% attend a formal religious institution on a regular basis. But yet the majority of these people are being asked to essentially pay for or subsidize a number of religious organizations. Now, the argument is, well, they do good in the community, and I don't dispute that. Some of them do some very good things. But if I'm an LGBTQ student in a high school in Colwood, for example, or I'm a woman who believes in her right to choose, I would take issue with a couple of these groups. So for example, number 3, the Westside Bible Church, their stated view on their website is that the unsaved will be cast into the lake of fire to suffer eternal conscious punishment. And they define those folks as, well, the aforementioned minority groups that I just mentioned. So then there was also a time in their history that extended to the color of their skin and a whole lot of other things, but you know, they're very progressive. So, you know, I question a government funding an organization that states as well in some of the links on their site that they openly express concern with the current cries for political and economic equity, conformity, and what they describe as a disgusting celebration of changing cultural and social mores. So I read into that our society has come to a place where we've legalized gay marriage, for example. This church doesn't believe in it. Regardless of what our laws say in this country, if you marry your partner of the same sex, you're going to get cast into the lake of fire. So, you know, it sounds dramatic, and it's, you know, you could easily construe it as I'm being a little over the top here, but as somebody who doesn't identify with their religion, I find things like speaking in tongues, which is something else they talk about here, condemnation of homosexuality and other groups. I find it offensive, deeply offensive. And I'm not alone in my beliefs. The statistics support that. So one of the fundamental tenets I believe in is the separation of church and state. And I believe that as a member of elected government that we shouldn't be entwining the two. So I don't want my tax dollars to support folks that are willing to take away fundamental human rights to folks that also are residents of our community. So while I acknowledge that they do good, I certainly cannot support a continued tax exemption for number 3 and 4 on this list. I've researched every one. There is another church on there that I find is quite progressive. They have openly embraced all of the cultural shifts in our society, as well as the laws that have been passed around some of the aforementioned things like marriage and so forth. And they accept that women do have the right to choose. Again, something enshrined in Canadian law. But again, number 3 and 4 do not, and therefore I will be, well, obviously publicly opposing using taxpayer dollars to fund these organizations. Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. My question is on number 7, which is our new application for the command of the Royal Canadian Legion Foundation and in fact Cockrell House. My concern is that this is a new application and I'm really not certain that 100% of that property address is used for the Legion purposes. So I don't know if that's information that staff could provide us with.
Thank you. Through the chair, the application does speak to 100% of the use of this facility for those purposes. Staff can certainly follow up with the applicant on that if council
Because
directs.
I know there is a necessary resident caretaker there as well, but it's a concern for me. I would rather have seen this come forward maybe as a grant in aid first and then maybe as an exemption after we'd had a chance to look at it. So I would make the motion that 1 through 6 be approved and that 7 be encouraged to apply for a grant in aid.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Day's motion? Seeing none. Thanks very much. Councillor Jordison, are you speaking to the original motion then? Are you speaking to the original or?
I was just gonna speak to the religious
Please.
part of it. Yeah, no, I just, I understand, Councillor Ward's position on that. I guess I just, in Canada, I think religious institutions, they're, they all seem to be exempt. And I guess where it comes into play is if they are deemed to offer a public benefit, where it may not be for everybody, I guess they do to some. I think it's just a really big, complex piece of legislation, essentially. But I also worry that that those religious affiliations or the organizations like the churches and that they also pass on savings so that daycares can operate and other organizations have a place to, go and offer services maybe at a discounted rate and that sort of thing. So in that regard, that's the only reason I would, continue to have them on the list, just because I think that they do good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I feel, I know what you're saying, Council Ward, and I'm very empathetic in what you're saying, because I am not, I'm certainly not a churchgoer and different religion altogether. So, but I sort of looked over the law on this right now, and it does allow some flexibility, and it is a normal thing for most municipal governments to give them the tax exemption. I couldn't find one that did. Well, no, there was someplace that didn't give the exemptions. The only church I still wasn't aware of is this the West Side Bible Church here, right across from City Hall. I have no knowledge of what that is. And I'm very aware of the Pentecostal church now. I've met the ministers there or whatever you call them. And they're really good people, and the facilities are always used for the greater good of the community. The Church of the Advent, again, was another great facility. They always let us in. They're just open doors. So I guess I would sort of think that they're great things. I just don't know anything about the West Side Bible Church. I don't, so, Jen, go ahead.
A couple of comments. So the community charter does provide for statutory exemptions, places of worship, both the improvement and then the land directly underneath the building. So these permissive exemption applications that are before you from places of worship are for the surrounding land. So for example, a parking lot. Westside Bible Church across the street, what I can comment on is there is a church group that operates out of that facility. There is also a preschool that operates during the school year out of the basement of that facility.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that for me. So I've never heard of a West Side Bible Church. So is that like a certain religion or? I don't know. I understand what a Pentecostal is and the Church of the Advent. I understand that, but what is that? Is that like a private church then? Please, if you could, I'm just trying to get. Oh, sorry about that.
So I don't pay attention to denominations because I'm not a person of a religious background, but I have been to the Westside Bible Church. And the reason I was there is because they've been very involved in promoting and assisting the community garden that's here on City Hall grounds. So they do, I know they have childcare. I know that they are helpful members of the community distributing necessary food to people. I've seen that happen. And I do know they have the daycare. So like most churches, even if it's not my gang, so to speak, they do a lot of good work.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. Like I said, I've actually been invited to the Church of the Advent, met with the minister there. Same with the Pentecostal Church, very open. Never been invited to the only thing that worried me is if they're racist, then I got some problems with that. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All very good points. And I think I just reiterate that I'm not suggesting that any of these institutions are doing anything overly bad in our community. That's not my message. I think to enact change or enable change, you sometimes have to push the envelope a little bit. And that's my goal this evening, is just to raise a conversation. Like I said, Councillor Day, you earlier stated you represent a group of citizens. I represent the 33% of people who have no religious affiliation. They're atheists and they don't agree with funding religious organizations. And it's not malicious. It's not to infer that these are bad folks at all. It's really to provoke discussion to say, if we fund them, who else should we fund then that has beliefs that are contrary to the law of the land and marginalize groups in our community. I live next door to Royal Bay High School, where there's an LGBTQ club. And the message to them is that it's okay for these people to preach hatred about you and who you are. And in fact, our government will fund you because they make up for that by doing some good work. And that to me is intolerable. And I'm fully prepared to be the martyr on this and stand out there, and die on that hill, because again, that's how you slowly enact change. There's a time in this country, no exaggeration, that I would have been dragged out of these chambers for making those comments and locked up or worse. That is not an exaggeration, but that's how far our nation has come. So I'm comfortable with that. I would state that, if council chooses to leave me as the lone vote on that, I am not offended in any way, shape or form. I understand your position. I knew that this for me was more about making a political statement on behalf of some folks who sometimes aren't all that comfortable making that statement. I grew up in a religious household. This doesn't come from a place of an education. My mother is actually a retired deacon with the Anglican Church. So I am, I say that in advance of folks to say, well, he doesn't understand. No, I very well understand what the subject is about. I am just looking to be a bit more progressive on how we treat some of the marginalized folks in our community. But I'll leave it at that. It's just a statement to be made, and we'll do what we continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to actually make a comment to Councillor Grogan to commend you for sticking your neck out for the LGBTQ AI plus community. I think it's a very commendable thing. So thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion then, please? I just read the recommendation. I didn't make the motion. So can I get a motion? Councillor Jensen, make the motion. Recommendation, okay. Councillor Grove seconds, discussion. Flog the horse here. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Got that, Councillor Ward opposed? Okay, thanks. Yo, great. There we go. That was easy. Favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Oh, shit.